All right, we're live.
Okay, great. This is the Park Commission meeting for March 4th, 2021.
I think that's May.
May the 4th, 2021. See, no good with things like that. And we're starting the meeting 9:32 a.m. So I'll start off with roll call as they appear on my screen. Niccole Maurici.
Here.
Mary Elizabeth Cofer. Here, I see her waving. David Raymond.
Here.
Participants up. Let's see who else. We have Laurie, Don Hudson.
Here.
And is Laurie and Laurie Mills.
Here.
And this is Bill McDuffie, and I'm here, obviously. We'll start off with public comments. Citizens wishing to address the Park Commission on items not on the agenda will be received this time. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. In accordance with the Open Meetings Act, the Park Commission is restricted from discussing or taking actions on items not listed on the agenda. Citizens who wish to address the Park Commission with regard to matters on the agenda will be received at this time the item is considered. And before we start that, I would like to speak as a public comment. Unfortunately, we won't be able to act on it, but maybe anything might happen anyway. But we have a donor who is willing to buy and deliver all the weed and feed we need for fields 3, 4, and 5. And so that could be, put out on the fields during this time when we've got spring. And I know that baseball and softball is winding down. So it'd be an ideal time to do that. I wasn't able to get this put together to get it on time, to get it on the agenda. So, but I think it's a very generous offer. And yeah, it'd be nice if there be some way to take this person up on it in some way. But anyway, I know we can't take action because it's not on the agenda. But thought maybe you guys might want to comment on that.
Well, can we get on the agenda for next month and just present the donor, kind of the details, who would Public Works do it, and what's the time frame, and then also understand what the Little League and Western Hills softball schedule is, because I want to say they go probably into first part of June, but I could be wrong on that.
I thought they were winding down, but I thought Steve Franke was going to be joining us. That was one of the reasons. I just think the timing would be great right now. But yeah, we certainly could get on the agenda for next month. It's just kind of now is weed and feed time of the year, unfortunately. So
well, I would like to ask something here. I thought we were trying to go with the more organic products.
Right.
I mean, we are on the Edwards Aquifer Recharge Zone. Is this, environmentally friendly, or is this what we've been using all along? That's what I'd like to know.
I think it's what's been being used all along, from the best of my not complete knowledge, but I don't know the answer to that. The best I've been able to determine is I haven't been able to find anything that says it's not, but of course that's tougher to find. And I had the same concern.
I'm just wondering, is there an alternative to weed and feed?
Yeah, nothing that I've been able to find. I know Vicki mentioned vinegar or something like that, but honestly, I don't think anything else is really effective to the degree that this is.
I don't think vinegar is effective at all.
Yeah, so.
It just kills everything if you put enough of it on. It's not selective at all.
Right.
Right.
It takes a lot.
Yeah.
I say put it on the agenda.
Okay. All right. I think that's been addressed. Any other public comments? I believe we have an item for public comment. I see Barry.
Yep.
Has his hand raised.
I do. Can y'all hear me?
We can.
Okay, just making sure the Zoom calls are still learning process. So there was a little red microphone, but I guess y'all can't hear me, so I'll move forward. So some of you may or may not know me. I'm currently the president of RCDC, and today what I'd like to do is just present you with some work that we've been doing in the Rollingwood Development Commission to help both further our charter of providing and attracting new businesses, but also just provide you with an update where we are with this. So to date, we've been, well, not to date, I guess, over the past month and a half, we've really engaged with a company called Milk and Cookies. The man's owner's name is Lance Thompson. We've been working with him really on trying to understand what an agreement, a potential agreement, obviously nothing is set in stone with any of these things, with him would look like. To date, we've received pictures of previous installations. If you're not familiar with Milk and Cookies, it's essentially a little 600-foot coffee shop that provides, coffees, treats, things like that. Almost like a little, not bistro is not the right word, but just a kind of a small bakery. The goal of the Milk and Cookies project actually is to put an installation near or in the park. And the reason one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this up for public comments. We have also received a general term sheet from the Milk and Cookies team and a path to move forward. Well, as you know, this is a democratic process, right? So nothing that we do at RCDC is set in stone, and by no means is it meant to be law or implemented. What we wanted to do was have a path forward. Our goal at RCDC is always to attract new business and find new revenue drivers for both the city and our citizens and improve the quality of life. I mean, we want to be able to have a diverse tax base. If we're reliant heavily on residential taxes, obviously that we can all agree that can be burdensome for a lot of our citizens. So providing new outlets is something that we always look forward to do. With that, we've worked hard on this, but my goal is to bring this to you here and let the council and other members of the Rollingwood decide where we go. And that's including the members of the Park Commission as well. I will say to date, and I don't think this has come as a surprise to the Park Commission, we've faced shortfalls in annual revenue to support the park as well as its master plan. The term sheets, again, which are meant to be a starting point proposed by the Milk and Cookies team, is the start of that process. But annually, what's proposed is a 600 square foot building and a 600 square foot of green space has the potential to fund both the park itself, maintenance, ongoing maintenance, as well as the master plan for the next 5 years. Again, as we move forward, this will be open up to council for both public and debate, conversations and mentions, as well as the council itself will be ultimately be the deciding factor of this. Our goal at RCDC and our charter really is to attract more businesses to the area and improve our overall quality of life for our citizens and our wonderful city. So with that, I'd like to open it up. Well, I'd like to close my comments, and then I'm sure, even though we're not supposed to have questions, there might be some. So I'm happy to take that as well.
I have a question.
Yep, go ahead.
I mean, seriously, in the park? I mean, this is a business. Why don't put it somewhere besides the park?
Well, so again, this is a starting point for the Milk and Cookies piece. So the thought here is the park is a community gathering place where both, it's not strictly meant to be a place where we are able to sit and I mean, there is the potential there, both with for instance, you have the baseball field, right? There is an entity there that pays money for both the maintenance and they receive a stipend from the city, right? I think it's roughly, they pay the city for items, but they get to collect certain revenues from that. So it's not just a park that's meant to be an idle space. This area, again, it's 1,200 square feet, has the potential to improve the quality of life for the park, provide an asset to the city, as well as provide a common gathering place. So there's only limited areas. We have 640 acres in the city of Rollingwood. Only so many spots are truly an area where something like this could have the potential. And right next door to the park, you have the Rollingwood, I mean, not the Rollingwood, you have the athletic club, which, while not actually part of the city, offers a lot of entities, a lot of services for people that aren't even members of our city. So I'm saying what I mean by that is there are it's a natural fit to provide, if you want to look at it as a concession or whatever, it's a place for our city to gather and provide a real value to us.
But why not approach them? I mean, why put it in the park?
It's actually,
Well,
it actually
for-
straddles the line of the park and the pool.
But why
It's
not?
on the term sheet if you've read that.
So for instance, at the West, at the athletic club, the price to actually go in there is $20,000 roughly for an entry fee, for an initiation fee. So that limits it to only the select members that are members of that club. So it's very inclusive, where this is very exclusive. This is much more inclusive, where people can come and gather without paying the fee for the athletic club. And again, it's just a more of a gathering spot that provides value to our citizens.
Okay.
And I will say, I know we have more comments, but again, this is meant to be a public comment, and we will have other times to comment and discuss this in the future. Again, I want to make sure this is clear. This is not to be the end point. This is us bringing it to your attention so that we can discuss it more as a community. And ultimately, the community will decide where this goes. It's not RCD going to decide this. It's ultimately the community.
Okay.
May I have the floor for a second, Mary
You may,
Elizabeth?
Brian.
I'm Brian Ryder. I was the initial chair of the Park Commission. I was the initial president and incorporator of the RCDC. And so I have some deep experience with issues of using the park for commercial purposes. Everything from a 7-lot super mansion sale to various and sundry things like this. I'm also a commercial real estate lawyer, and I would like to kind of address this. Barry, I'd like to have a sit down with you and take a look at the term sheet. But from a lawyer's standpoint, having done retail development all over the southern part of the United States, this doesn't make sense unless it is a coffee shop for all of the traffic down Rollingwood Drive going to work in the morning. You don't make a business out of selling a few cookies and other things to a seasonal use like the Little League, which is twice a year, or a few people coming to the swimming pool. Now, there's no reason to cut off discussion. Although I'm very cynical about this, and I know the mayor's on the call, but I did also led the charge to get the city a 0.5 point on the sales tax to create an endowment for the park, only to have the city council use that and divert it to the streets. So that's why you don't have money right now, is that the city council in the past has taken the budgets that and the cash flow that have been created for the park.
That's actually not completely accurate about the 0.5 cent. We were told last year by the city attorney and others that actually we were not legally allowed to have that endowment provide for the park. It has to be used for the development commission to develop corporations and economic development. And that was not actually the case with the park itself. That was why that happened.
Well, we used that for a number of years for the park. Whether or not the law has changed, I don't know. I've been out of the business for about 10 years. Let me make one final comment as a commercial real estate lawyer. I haven't seen the term sheet, but if this is a commercial deal, it needs to be handled like a commercial lease, which means that it needs to have percentage rent, it needs to pay taxes, it needs to do cleanup, it needs to have insurance, it needs not to be assignable so that if this doesn't work, it can be flipped for a profit for these people and something else show up there. So there are any number of aspects of commercial use of the park that have been addressed in the past that need to be addressed again before we do something like this. If this is going to be a revenue stream and an endowment for the park maintenance, maybe it should be considered, but that would be, to me, the only way we would need to have any kind of a commercial use in the park. And we have a building there already. I mean, if this is to serve the Little League, we have a Little League gazebo over there, whatever you call it, that has really not been opened, but was intended to be used to sell cookies and soft drinks and popcorn, et cetera. So I'm willing to engage in the discussion, but my statement first out of the gate is relatively negative, as you might have heard. I'm willing to give some time again and willing to help again take a look at this. If you care to call on me, and I will volunteer.
I would love to meet with you. Obviously, that's more than, I mean, again, like as I mentioned before, this is ultimately the community decides where this is. This is meant to be a democratic process So there's in no way is this the final piece. I will encourage you to look at the term sheet.
Mhm.
This isn't, we are not selling any property. This is strictly would be something, if you look at the term sheet, you'll understand more, but it is a lease. There is rent involved. There's also sales tax collection, et cetera. There is a build out, but ultimately the city still possesses and owns the property, even the actual physical building itself. So it's not something where we're actually like cutting out a piece of the park and giving it to a private entity. They strictly will be there at our behest, not acquiring land or anything like that. But again, I think that's why we wanted to bring this up again, to start this dialogue. I think, and something both as beneficial and potentially controversial as this, it's something that I'd like to have everyone involved with early on versus in the latter part. I think transparency is going to be crucial with this one way or another. And so that is my ultimate goal here, both presenting this today and then having subsequent meetings and agenda items, both on RCDC, the council, and likely back to the park commission. So the more dialogue we can have, the better. The more understanding and openness with the community we can have, the better. Again, I think all input is good. I mean, we're only a community of 1,400 people. So to have something that doesn't seem to be open or for debate or something that's done behind doors, closed doors is not the intent here. That is why I'm bringing it up before any agreement has been in place or anything else like that. It's strictly, hey, this is what we're thinking. We'll bring other stuff up to the council that it's going to be other corporate entities that could be involved in the corridor or somewhere else. I mean, that is our task. So again, let me, Amber or anyone else is happy to give you my information. I work out of my house, so happy to meet with you whenever you'd like.
Okay, great. I see Mike Dyson, our mayor, has his hand raised. If you can unmute yourself, Mike, I'd like to hear from you.
Yeah. Hey, Phil. Hey, everybody. Thanks for welcoming me here. So public comment on a lot of information that's already been exchanged. Obviously, this is going to be something that's going to be debated or discussed, hopefully, rather than debated throughout the city in various venues, ideally all public. But in short, we do have budget constraints at the city. I understand and appreciate Brian's recollection of RCDC, and I certainly wouldn't mind picking his brain for the future as well, understanding better the concept around the origination of our EDC. To add some clarity on Barry's point, our RCDC had been providing funds improperly to the park for O&M, and I forget the specific statute off the top of my head, very clearly stipulates that economic development monies, those tax monies, are not intended to be spent in that manner. And that is one of the big reasons why we changed the way we were operating there. I believe that has been the case for a considerable period of time. I'm not quite sure how the RCDC kind of went afield in that, but that is why we did shift the financing mechanisms for the RCDC, or the RCDC shifted those financing mechanisms. As far as this conceptually, and as far as commercial activities in the park, guys, we have commercial activities in the park consistently. I can see there's some folks on here that I suspect are going to suggest commercial use permits. We know that there's workout groups that consistently use our park facilities. We have a permitting process for that. We do also acknowledge the fact that we have commercial leases. The Little League and softball fall into that category. Brian is absolutely right that any additional considerations along those lines should conform to any other type of commercial use, commercial leasing that we would otherwise consider. I would be firmly against any sale of property, but it doesn't sound like that's what's being discussed here. It sounds like it is a proper lease. I do believe that the RCDC is operating with the right spirit, as the Park Commission frequently does, and trying to make the park a place for all, a gathering spot for people in our community. It's I used to be a big fan of saying that this was both the figurative and literal heart of our city, although I had my hand slapped enough times by some folks in our community for saying that. So I'll just leave that out there for anybody that wants to agree or disagree with it. In short, guys, I applaud the RCDC for going down this road. Whether or not this is the right fit for the community will decide. This is exactly what the EDC, our Economic Development Corporation, is intended to do: explore opportunities for the city's development economically. So I'm happy that we're having this conversation. I do applaud them again for an innovative approach to solving some of our constraints. And I do hope that if this was the right fit, it is the right fit for the community, that these monies will be specifically earmarked for funding park maintenance. By the look at just, based on the term sheet that is available for review, it seems like this is basically our park maintenance budget covered, right? Our annual budget covered. So there's some upside here, and I'm hoping that the community is willing to have this conversation and engage in this conversation both honestly and openly. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I have one quick question or maybe comment before letting Laurie talk, which is I'm hearing maintenance of the park, like using these funds that might be collected from Milk and Cookies for maintenance of the park. But then it seemed like Barry was more saying that it would be to implement aspects of the park master plan, which a lot of those would be new development, new build outs. So if we're talking new development, new build outs, then we're back to the monies that were collected, that half-cent could be more, go down that road. I'm not necessarily in favor of that, but I'm just trying to get clear on where the line is between maintenance and new development.
Sure. Well, so I wish, Phil, we could answer that there was a bright line, clear rule. There are some things that are very clearly tagged as O&M. There are other items that get presented as a capital improvements project, which the RCDC can sponsor with support of the council, right? Then there's a notice process to go through, public notice process, and RCDC is really tightened up how they handle their project adoption. So the short answer is there are some things that very clearly fall under O&M. Mowing grass, weed eating, the discussions around fertilizers and mulching and tree maintenance and those kinds of things. There are other things that maybe fall very clearly into capital improvements, right? So a new trail, whether or not we're talking about, if you're talking about upgrading the existing trail, that's where kind of that bright line might get a little fuzzy. And that's where you have to have that discussion. Right. So just to be very clear, RCDC's monies, if properly approved through the process, can go to projects. They cannot go to what would be classified as O&M.
Yep. So
does that help answer your question? And I think just to be sorry, the second half of that question was, Barry suggested one thing and I'm suggesting another, but I think that what you're really staring down the barrel there is emblematic of the fact that this is a very early stage discussion. And this is exactly why we want to talk about options. We know we have needs. We know we have needs on the O&M side. We know we have needs on the capital improvement side. And what this does is provide optionality for funding those needs.
And just to, can I just clarify or at least explain my thought process on that just rather quickly? I know that Mike and others have said this, but so for instance, there is a lease in the term sheet. So in my vision, or like my thought about this, the lease itself will be used to go fund ongoing park maintenance. In addition, like we've done in the past, any sales tax collected could actually be used to fund other projects, the capital improvements. That's what the sales tax has been used for and been legally allowed for. So I was maybe muddying the waters there, but there were two sides to this, and that's actually what I was trying to discuss. There's this two pieces, and so I apologize if that was confusing anyone, but there's two revenue streams. There's the lease itself, and then any sales tax collected off of Milk and Cookies would be something that we could dedicate to the capital improvements, which goes into our fund like it does today from Trader Joe's and anyone else. But it just gives us an additional revenue source to help fund any capital improvements that the council or anyone else approves. So that's what I was getting at there. It wasn't meant to be all one collective pot of money that could do both. Both have to look at in separate ways, but it allows us another revenue stream to help.
Great. Thanks for clearing that up. So sales tax monies can only be
Thanks
used
for that.
for capital improvement and development projects. Okay, appreciate it. Laurie, I'd like to recognize you now.
Thank you. And I appreciate the creativity. I know we do need money to fund our parks and other things for the city. And I know this isn't the first time that Milk and Cookies has come up, or tacos in the park, or other options for that. My concern as a house on Rollingwood Drive and having young drivers and so many kids in the neighborhood is adding traffic to Rollingwood Drive and how that would be addressed. My other concern is that should it not be if it's going to be open from 7 to 9, 6 days a week, can we really support that?
I believe it's actually 7 days a week. When I read it, it said Monday through Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. So it looks like it's 7 days a week.
Yeah. And that is the initial proposal, right? So we as a city, as a development council and as a community get to decide that, right? And if they don't like the terms, then we get to, then they reject it, or vice versa. So I think that's, again, this is meant to be the starting point. And even as the development, the RCDC president, I would never say that we would be dictated to from a business. So it's up to us to decide what the terms are, and they have to either accept or reject. So I totally agree with you on the point of the 7 to 9. What does the lighting look like? What is the signage, right? Like, how loud is it? There's a lot of things to go into this. And that's why I wanted to bring this to you, because the last thing you want to do, right, is to install an entity that is disruptive both to the neighbors directly across the street or anyone else in the community. So again, that's why, I wanted to bring this up, start the dialogue. And I think from collectively, right, we can come to something that is either agreeable or not agreeable, right? This doesn't have to happen, but it is an opportunity for us. We should look at it, evaluate it, and then move forward one way or another. So if I lived where you live, I would feel the exact same way. And I would want to understand those items, the 7 to 9, especially, on during definitely during school nights and things like that. That can be, I don't know how old, if you have kids or not, but that could be something that's an issue, right? And so we need to understand that. And that's what this is meant to be. The term sheets are not set in stone. It's a negotiation.
So I want in the process, to think about traffic and what we want to our neighborhood and how that impacts our neighborhood and our kids and just driving in general. The other concern I have is, so once we establish this and we have the funds, if Milk and Cookies goes away, then we suddenly are relying on those funds to take care of our parks going forward. And now we've got to find another business that fits. And we're never, I guess my concern is just about long-term, what this looks like and how this changes our city. And I am fully aware of everything Mayor Dyson has spoke about. We as the Park Commission have been having these conversations for the last 2 years as well. So I know that there's a fine line and a balance here, and how do we do this? But whatever decision is made, it does change our city.
Yeah, and I think, I know this is not really supposed to be a dialogue, but for that point, right? I mean, practically speaking, if we have a a multi-year lease or whatever it turns out to be with Milk and Cookies, if that happens, at some point before the end date, you're going to realize, hey, this isn't working for the city of Rollingwood, or it's not working for them. Like, there's no foot traffic, right? Or it's too disruptive to our side, to the city of Rollingwood. So there's going to be a point where you have the chance, both from a city standpoint and even a business standpoint, to figure out, okay, what's our next move? So I don't want to say that it's not, I guess my point is, it wouldn't be an abrupt cutoff, right? You're going to get us, you're kind of read the tea leaves and understand, hey, this isn't going well. We're not going to renew this lease, or man, he's not doing well. He's not going to renew the lease, right? Like, we love it. It's not disruptive, but he's not making this entity's not making money, or man, there's like a lot of action here and it's disrupting our community. So I guess from that standpoint, I would be shocked if it was just a hard cutoff where all of a sudden we have say in 5 years, $100,000 deficit in our budget that we have to make up. I think we're going to understand from there where, at least at some months, or if not years off, that this needs to be course corrected. And I will say, and again, I have no bias. I've only met Lance from the conversations we've had. I don't know him from Adam. The guy so far has been pretty applicable to working with us. That doesn't mean he's a good partner or not a good partner, but I feel like if it came to the point where something wasn't working on his side, he would let us know. And if it was working on our side, I'm certain we would let them know. So from that standpoint, I think if we enter in an agreement, if we ever do enter an agreement, if we approach it with transparency, that's usually the best way to go about this. I mean, this is a test for all of us, right? If it happens and move forward, I mean, I look at this as really like a beta test for the community. Like, what can we absorb? What can we not? Is this the right fit? Is it not? Do we want it at all? Maybe not. And that's okay. We just have to make sure that we decide that. And I think from a budgetary shortfall, I mean, if that truly happens, God willing, if I'm, still in RCDC in 5 years, we'll have a lot more of a sales tax base within the commercial area, right? That makes sense. That offsets some of this. So, I just think there's a lot of variables and a lot of levers that we can pull over the next 3 to 5 years or 2 to 5 years that make this that side less worrisome for me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, is the intent that it's a walk up, or are we having parking for this, or is the parking at the park? I mean, as a Rollingwood Drive resident, that's a big concern for me. And I do want to say thank you so much for serving on our CDC. I know we have a problem filling boards and all of that. So I appreciate all the work you're doing and how creative you're being and all of that. And I hope that the discussion doesn't feel otherwise.
So my thought, and even talking with Lance, when we've talked about this is a walk-up. It's a walk-up entity, right? There is likely going to be some cases where people like drive, right? I mean, not everyone that drives, that everyone goes to our parks. We know this from previous studies or previous presentations we've had, that they park, right? There's not enough parking next to the police station because people want to go there and they park on the road. That area, the entity of the park, kind of where the baseball fields are and next to the athletic club, there is parking there. But majority of this traffic, I think, will likely be our neighborhood, our community. So it is envisioned as very much a walk up. Think of it as, almost like an old school, like just walk up. I mean, that's what he's done in the past. There's one in, he has a Milk and Cookies in the Terrytown area.
Well, it's in Riker, yes.
Yeah, Riker. Sorry.
On the edge of
I'm still learning the areas of, So think of that concept, but without the tiny boxwoods, without that restaurant being there. So it's very much meant to be that entity in Rollingwood, where it doesn't really lend itself to everyone driving in and just being like it's not a Sonic drive-in, right? Like, I mean, I think, and that's another thing, we would need to look at both with him and if we move forward with the agreement, what that looks like. The traffic flow, because I mean, we all live in Rollingwood and we see people, they fly 40 to 50 miles an hour down some of these roads, and I have a 3 and a 5-year-old, right? Like, that drives me nuts when people do that. So, or even like casual car traffic. So to me, I agree like with you as well. That's one of the things we need to settle and understand what that looks like. But it is meant to be more of a foot traffic place. You come, you hang out, you have your food, or you have your milk and cookies, and then you leave. But you don't. It's not a lingering place, right? It's not loud. You're not serving alcohol or having karaoke, right? So this is just the stuff we need to work through and understand. And again, if it doesn't come back as something that we're acceptable to, then that's okay. We look for other alternatives. But we're going to keep presenting alternatives until hopefully we have something that is not necessarily for the park, but in general as an RCDC, like that's what we're trying to do, right? Is to help the city. So anyway, I don't know if that answers your question or not, but.
What is the next step?
So we've moved forward as like from this point. I think Amber and Mike, I'd like for you to kind of set that up for us. But we have the term sheet. We have some pictures and some feedback from other communities where this is done. But I think ultimately we're going to have we'd have to have I'd like to have Amber or Mike answer that question because I don't want to speak out of turn.
Sure. Mayor Dyson had to jump off the call.
Okay.
Just so everybody knows. I think the next step is to bring this back as an agenda item for Park Commission. I know RCDC is going to have the term sheet as an agenda item at their next meeting, which is not this coming Thursday, but next coming Thursday. And I would encourage everybody who's interested in this topic to attend. And then I would envision it might come back one more time to the Park Commission at your June meeting to receive some feedback on the terms and answer any additional questions you might have. And then from there, if RCDC is still intending to proceed, it would go to the City Council for consideration. Yeah,
So
David.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I got a question for Barry. There was mention of our current facility it was built out to be a concession stand that's not been operating for a while. Has anyone considered the feasibility of that space before we consider building a brand new 600 square foot building?
That was considered way back when, and that was there's a lot of reasons. That was actually given and donated by citizens of Rollingwood, and there was a lot of concern about repurposing something in that way. And there were still all the concerns that will need to be addressed with a facility like this, which are traffic, litter, rodents, disposal of anything else that comes up, and losing some parking. You're going to have employees that need to park their cars. So there's a ton of issues. This was first proposed to repurpose the field house in that way. And that was kind of, there was a lot of negative sentiment for that from the community. And so I think this is another different kind of look at that. I would like to, oh, Diana dropped off. You can raise your hand again, Diana. I was trying to get all of our public to speak if they want to, but so anyway, that's my limited knowledge of what happened with that. But you're absolutely right. There is a concession area and some storage and stuff in the current field house. And that is another concern, that if we build another building and it doesn't work out, then who's going to be responsible for either removing that building or repurposing that building? Plus, we're losing some of our precious park space to the footprint of the building. All of those things would need to be looked at.
Right.
Diana, I would like to recognize you. If you can unmute yourself. There you go. We can hear you.
Yep.
Hopefully we can hear you. Floor is yours. We can't hear you.
I think yeah, unmute.
It looks
Oh,
like
no.
she's unmuted.
I
And
think
we're
she's
hearing,
in binary 0101. Sorry.
we're hearing beeping, but we're not hearing you, Diana. You can maybe try to call in on your phone. Oh, there we can hear you.
There we go. Nope.
I think it may be your Wi-Fi, Diana.
Thank everyone for their hard work. And
Oh, there you go. Yep, we can hear you sometimes.
Pardon?
We can hear you now, sometimes. I think maybe your Wi-Fi is not super great or something. So sometimes we hear little bings and sometimes we hear your voice. But we can try. Can't hear anything right now. You might want to try to call in on your phone. All right.
It looks like she might have dropped off.
Yeah, in the meantime, maybe she's going to try to call in. Don't see any. I do see Life Keto has their hand raised, but I'm assuming you want to speak to your issue later on. Is that correct?
Phil, I'll let you know. He actually teaches a class at 10:30 in the park. So I was hoping to see if we could at least pull up his item next. So I think.
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
My kid's taken that class, by the way. So he took it once. He liked it. It was
great.
Okay,
Thank you.
great.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
I can be brief. So first
Hey,
of all, thank
sorry.
you.
Yeah,
sorry.
let's-
Am I done with public comments? I have to hop on the meeting here quickly. So just trying to understand. This is Barry, by the way.
Yeah, I know, Barry. Honestly, don't know. But certainly I know we are going to be going through this multiple times.
Of
So
course.
if you have other commitments, I think you can jump off, and there may be more discussion about it. All these are recorded, so you could certainly revisit that at your leisure if need be. So
if there are any questions that come up later, I'm happy to relay those to to Barry and Emily or whatever we need.
okay, great.
Okay, thank you. And then I missed the name. Sorry, there was a member of the park commission, I believe, that wanted to speak with me. As long as it's not a violation of like the open act, I'm
Open
fine.
meetings. Yeah.
Yeah. Open Meetings Act. Yeah. So Ashley or whomever, just give them my contact info and we'll set up a meeting to talk. Oh, no worries.
Sure.
Yeah.
Feel free to reach out to me if you want to speak to Barry.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you
All
all
right.
so much.
Thank you,
Really
Barry.
appreciate it. Yep.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. All right.
So
Life Keto.
thank you. Yes, so we're currently teaching classes at the park, which I'm very thankful for because it's helping our business survive. We've been in Westlake for almost 28 years now, right on Bee Caves, right down the road from the park. And from my perception, what I hear from families and from the instructors, it's going really well and the community seems to be enjoying and benefiting, and we're very thankful for it. And just with summer upon us, a lot of the kids are not enjoying the heat in the afternoons. So we're hoping to maybe switch some of the afternoon classes to the morning. And so currently we have a Monday afternoon class and then 2 Tuesday afternoons. And I could see possibly just doing 1 or 2 in the morning on Tuesday morning at 10 instead of 1 or 2 of the afternoons. And then just depending upon the demand. And then Saturday mornings, we have 2 classes, one at 10, one at 11, and possibly for the heat, maybe starting at like 9:15 or something like that. So just, and then we really love working at the park. And so if it works, as an ongoing thing, who knows what's going to happen with COVID, but I think there seems to be a demand for outdoor classes regardless. So I would love to continue our relationship if it's serving everyone well. But the main thing was for the summer, just to see if we could switch from afternoons to mornings or start earlier.
I love the idea of the children having these opportunities. I just absolutely love it because so many parents are worried about what to do with their children, how to keep them active and engaged.
Yeah. As far as the scheduling and conflicts, and I know we are later in this meeting going to be looking at the commercial lease rates that we allow and all that sort of thing. So there are going to be concerns around that in regards to it. But as far as scheduling, as I think that really comes down to, are there going to be conflicts with other leases or activities in the park? And that comes down to, I guess, our city staff managing to make sure those conflicts don't occur. So.
Sure. And Phil, the reason I had brought this, in the past, we've had a couple minor changes to different commercial use permits. Can we switch to a couple different days and with various groups? And usually if there's minor, I approve the change, but I kind of wanted to bring it to y'all to make sure, especially now that you're kind of reviewing the commercial rate structure, that those kind of changes were okay. We haven't had any issues with groups running in the same time frame, and everyone is pretty cool with just, if someone else is there already who has a commercial use permit, they can move somewhere else, or things like that. So as long as it's okay with the commission, I just thought this might be a good time to bring it up and make sure that y'all were aware that on occasion there are small changes to schedules, and make sure y'all were okay with approving those.
Yeah, so thanks, Ashley. Are they going to be using it more than 2 times a week? Did I hear something about that?
Phil, you're really quiet. I think it sounds like you're.
Are you going to be using it more than 2? Are they going to be using it more than 2 times a week? Or
Currently, we have 1 class on Monday afternoon, 2 classes on Tuesday, and 2 Saturday morning. And then I'm guessing in the summer we'll probably have less. So
that's basically 5 sessions.
Yes.
Classes. Okay.
And those were the original amount, time frames approved by the commission. So they'll be, doing less classes. It's just switching the time frames.
Got it.
It makes sense that you brought it to our attention, and we appreciate that, because again, as we're looking at approving more commercial permit applications, it's good to know what we are all trying to achieve here, and that if there is overlap of switching around, maybe at some point we can get to where we actually have a schedule that we're able to see and kind of access. That way we're not always coming to Cities End to say who's where, when, and get some more system process involved with that. But I think we're inching toward that as we review this opportunity for folks to come in and use our parks, as well as for us to be able to understand what's going on when.
Right.
So I don't have any objection to y'all changing up your schedule as to when you offer the class times, because it does make sense with the heat. Get in earlier, get out earlier, and it just gives parents a morning activity to do with their child when they're out of school, and also a less cooler time of the day to do it.
Yeah, I agree with Niccole. I'm happy to accommodate a good business that's been around for a long time in our neighborhood. My kids have gone to in the past, and enjoy your program. And I know it's a difficult time, and so I'm happy to be accommodative.
Well, thank you. I greatly appreciate it, and I know it's been a wonderful place for us to be and partner with you all. It's been a pleasure, and I hope to continue it.
So do we need to do any kind of possible action on, take a vote on? I mean, I'm not hearing any objections. I certainly don't have any either. This all makes perfect sense, but I know since this is our item number 7 on our regular agenda, and it's discussion and possible action on a request from Waikato to update their schedule for commercial use in the park. Do we need to take a vote on that? Ashley, Amber?
Yeah, that would be great, just to make sure it's in the record.
Okay, so do I hear?
I'll make a move that we approve this schedule change.
All right, so motion by Mary Elizabeth Cofer to approve the schedule change. Do I hear a second?
Second.
David Raymond, second. All those in favor say aye or wave your hands. I'm seeing ayes.
Aye.
Don't see you. Don't hear you. She's still muted.
My hand was up.
Okay, sorry. I don't see everybody on my screen. Sorry.
Get me,
Any
Phil?
opposed? Up, go Don.
Did you get me
I did.
as in favor?
I did.
Okay.
I did. Any opposed? Hearing none, the proposal passes. Thank you very much for helping out with our children in the park.
Thank you. And I think I mentioned this before, but just so you know, if you all ever want like some kind of family one-time workshop or something, I'd be happy to donate my time to do that to serve your community, because I work with, like I'm on the advisory board for Lake Travis School District for social emotional well-being. I work with a lot of families and parents and teachers. And so I really like to support that well-being in a community. So if you all ever want something like that, I'd be happy to serve you in that way on Zoom or in person. So,
Can you come to our next commission?
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah, no, that's actually my next private lesson or something like that. That's my day, basically.
I mean, if you're giving free services.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you. Forgive me for leaving. I'm going to start teaching.
Not a problem.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Have
Thanks
a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you so much. Be well.
Right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. So now I'm going to try to get us back on more of a consistent track with our agenda. So we're closing down public comments and item number 7. And moving on to the consent agenda. First item is consent of the minutes from the park of April 6th, 2021. Does anybody have anything to amend or comment about in the meeting minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion by Niccole Maurici to approve.
I'll second that. This is Laurie.
Second by Laurie Mills. All right. Once again, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Wave hands.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. So now we're on to item 4 of a regular agenda update from Western Hills and Western Hills Girls Softball and Western Hills Little League. And I know Steve was there earlier. Steve, you're muted. If you can unmute yourself, then we'll hear from you.
Yeah, thank you very much. As Phil mentioned, we're getting towards the end of our season. Originally, we were supposed to end on May 15th. This weekend's weather kind of knocked out pretty much all our games. So we are trying to extend a couple. We're going to reschedule a few games on the 22nd. Not the whole league. We'll move games to that. But so Saturday, the 22nd will be our last regular season games. And then we will have, from the softball side, we will have one team, our 12U team will do all-stars. So that will mean we will have one team that practices in June. I will get that schedule once I think it's going to be Tuesday and Thursday evenings, but that hadn't been officially set. But that doesn't parlay any games. We don't usually play games during all-star seasons at the park. It's just practicing. So that's kind of how we're going forward right now. And then our maintenance guy was finally able to finish the dirt and field work on field 3. So that stuff has been completed this past week. And that is about it from me. Chad, I think's on. I don't know if Little League schedule differs much from ours. It's usually pretty in line with when we kind of end.
Not that I'm aware of. I know we'll have an all-star team playing on Hatley 1 through June, but I don't know the schedule yet. I think we're still coming up with it.
So is that the only all-star team is going to be on Hatley 1?
No, softball.
I believe so. I don't have anything on 3, 4, or 5.
Field 2. So all of the all-stars on fields 1 and 2.
Yep.
Okay. Good to know.
Remind me who's responsible for fixing the fences and the gates?
That is us that we are looking into. We are running into trouble with the vendors again. I've gotten 3 bids. I've chosen one, but the way he wrote his proposal, it didn't actually list verbatim what he was supposed to fix. In his email, he said, "Oh yeah, no, we'll cover everything we talked about when I met with you." But I said, "Can't you just put it in writing on the proposal before I sign it?" And for some reason, it's taken him a week and a half to 2 weeks to do that. I don't understand why they can't get this stuff done, but I guess they're just so busy that.
Which group was selected, Steve?
I'm trying to go with Discount Fence. They came in the cheapest.
They do
But-
good work. I've had them do work for me before, and I've never had any problem. Who are you dealing with?
Matt Strite or Street is their project appraiser or bid guy, I guess.
Dan is the owner. You may just say, "Hey, I need this sped along. I answered to a board. I'm trying to get this done," and just see if that.
Yeah, and I when the other thing too is we were trying to do a quick fix on gates and some of the bad spots, and then have them also give us a second proposal on a much bigger project to do this summer. And I said, "Hey, can I get the second bid too?" Because I wanted to make sure if I go with them on the first one, his second one's not going to be way out of the ballpark. And because I'd like the same company to do both projects. Because
And I would just remind them that, this is something that could be a long-term gig for them.
yeah, and I don't understand. I know Discount Fence, as you say, works with a lot of residents in Rollingwood, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to go with him or go with them.
Oh, Steve.
And they did come in with the lowest rate on the first project, not by a little bit, but one person was a much higher, and then one was just a tad bit higher than Discount Fence. But if they're not going to be more responsive, I might have to go to the second bidder here.
I understand, but it just needs to get done. I mean, we can't keep waiting on people, and I guess it's just a matter of saying, how bad do y'all want this?
Yeah, no, and I've emailed him a couple times, and he says he'll get it to me, but it just drags. So I will check in with him again.
Hey,
Above him.
Steve, I have a question.
Yes.
The fields have been used with the fences and the gates in whatever condition they're in for quite some time. Might it make more sense to just decide what the permanent fix is and leave off the temporary repairs and wait till baseball is through using the fields and then just get the whole job done? That was one thought that I had. And another thought is, I find that vendors and subcontractors, sometimes you talk to them and they hear you. I would just send him a real accurate, this is what we want. This gate, this gate, this gate, this gate. If you have to take a picture of it and label the location somehow, because these guys can get really busy, and they can be forgetful, and sounds like that's kind of what's going on here. I've run into some of that myself with painters and carpet people. So
yeah, no, the way it was set up was none of the first project would interfere with, it's not overlap at all, and it was going to be the majority of fixing the gates on 3, 4, and 5, and so we didn't want to do the bigger projects until the summer, because with the season ongoing, we just didn't want a lot of work being done on the fencing, and it might mess up practices or games. And I understand that, but yeah, the hope was to try to get this first one done so it fixes the gates. That's the big issue, at least, not as much for our organization, but, to keep it safe for the off-leash area and stuff, and make it just more accessible for everyone, I guess, going into that back area. But yeah, I'm gonna hold the feet. Yeah, whether I've got to put it in writing on an email and say, okay, and that way at least I have it in writing. If he can't put it in his proposal when I sign it, then I'll have something that he agrees to, I guess.
Okay, great. Anything else from anyone from Western Hills? I have a thing. Do you know anything about weed and feed on the organic or not with that, Steve?
We do not. We I had talked to our field guy that does kind of the dirt work now. I mean, he had originally talked about doing the turf maintenance also at one time when we were first going through the RFP process, and that was when it was still being discussed as Western Hills doing everything.
Yeah.
But I personally do not. I can see if he'd be willing to at least maybe talk to the city and maybe have some suggestions. I know the city has very specific rules about what products can be used. So that always makes it tough when we're trying to do natural and everything like that. But
that would be great. I mean, the more kind of information we can get, we're going to be bringing this up at the next park commission meeting. But I know, especially after your season winds down and before it gets to be the deafening heat of the summer, it'd be good to address this as soon as possible. So
yeah.
More information we can get. The other thing is, so is all the dirt, I've heard that the dirt that had been delivered from the end for the infield was soaked, and when they tried to move it, they actually popped a tire on the backhoe and that type of thing. Has all that dirt been moved now, or is it still over in that parking lot?
It was finished yesterday.
Awesome, thanks.
So yeah, all the dirt, the pallets, all that has been moved out of that parking lot.
Great. I don't know if you're planning on jumping off, but there is something that will be about that Niccole has about maybe possibly looking at reconfiguring some of our parking that I think you might want to hang out for, but
yeah, no, I usually try to stay on, so I'll be hanging in the wings if any comments are needed.
Excellent.
Are we also talking about moving the stands?
I did submit that as a work order to the city, and I think Ashley had mentioned that probably in the next week that it would be addressed. But Laurie, if you want to mention it now, we could talk about that too.
Whenever we talk about the fields again is fine.
Okay.
Good.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks.
All right. Item number 5, discussion and possible action on a presentation from Nudge Consulting to answer questions from the park commission and the community regarding the park master plan.
Yes, and I had submitted this and wanted to bring it to the commission for all of y'all's input on it. We have a lot of new commission members, including myself. I'm here within the last year or so. And since the master park plan was brought to fruition prior to me coming on and many of us, we thought it might be beneficial to invite Nudge Consulting to come in, and we would have a list of questions, if we have any, from us individually or collectively as the group, to be able to ask them, so this way they can give us the perspective. Because as we're digging into little projects associated with the master park plan, there's a lot of things that I just don't know the history behind, and it might be beneficial for them to come in and explain it, the big picture and the hows and the whys they got to what they have. Because this was a community effort. There was a comprehensive study done. And so it's not like one particular person came up with this plan, but there's a lot of history behind there. So we just wanted to see from the commission's perspective, is this something we'd like to get them to possibly come to our next meeting and do a presentation? We can ask specific questions to them that they can give us the background on, or do we think that we can just investigate it on our own with reaching out to our own park liaison, city council members, as well as any other history that might have developed over the last few years to get this plan to what it is?
What would they charge to do that? I don't know that I want to spend money on that, but if they're coming out of the goodness of their heart.
That's a great question. Ashley and Amber, do you have any insight? Do you think that this is something, or Wendy, if you're still on the call, that they might be willing to come in and, give us a little bit of their time to do it for free.
I'm sure Nudge was extremely good to us. I bet we spent double on that master plan and they only charged us for what they promised. So they definitely go above and beyond, and I'm sure they would be willing. I did send an email out, but by the time this was brought to our attention, I think it was late Thursday, Friday, and asked if he'd be available, and I did not hear back from him. But perhaps with more notice, he would be willing to attend and give you all information.
Okay. I'm a little.
Can I make a comment here? Relative to the trail, which we have as, to some extent, identified as a live project, I'd like to, I would really like to hear Nudge's, see how they're thinking about this, but I would be interested in a presentation about the master plan in general, but I would request a very specific focus on the trail, given that's, I mean, we definitely don't want to, the trail is part of the master plan, and we want to make sure that it dovetails with the master plan. We don't want to do anything that would then have to be redone as work on the master plan is done. So I'd want to make sure that we have a focus on the trail.
Well, maybe that's where this was about, is that if we have specific questions that are important to us, then we could put that list out to them before they would come to the meeting, so that they know what they're going to be asked, or they can address that and bring it to us as a presentation.
I was also thinking that it would be really useful to me to meet with representatives from the company at the site and just, the plan, master plan is it's a 2D drawing, and I would be interested in their, I mean, we can do it any old way, but at some point I would like for someone from Nudge to talk to us about actually how they see placing the trail and some of the thoughts about the trail. So
I thought the trail was not a live project. I thought that had been determined that it was not.
Well, it's something that we take up in every meeting. It's not ready to work on, but it's something that, my understanding is something that the park board has said, let's look into this. Not necessarily a live project, but it's not, my understanding is that we're trying to get it done. So
well, we have it on an agenda item a little bit later on. So that's, okay. There's a look, again, this was sort of a big picture umbrella of what's the 30,000 foot view look like? How did it come to be? Do we have specific questions with regard to components of that master park plan that I don't know the history of? And do we think it's important? Do we think it's of value if we would ask them to come in pro bono to do a simple Q&A with us if we have enough questions of concern? I don't want to waste their time, and I definitely don't want to waste our time. Y'all, I mean, we spend a lot of time doing these things. So I'd rather be efficient. And if it's a value that we think as a commission for them to present, great. Or the other suggestion could be, we just compile a list of questions, we send them off to them, they give it back to us in writing, and we have them. And then if we need explanation on it, we can then invite them in to do more of a presentation. Because again, I want to be sensitive to all of our time that we dedicate to serving on this commission. And I don't want to waste their time or our time. So if we feel, one, that if we as individuals have specific questions, maybe that's the way we go about it, is let's get our questions over to Amber or Ashley, and then they can send that out to Nudge. And if we get those back in writing and we're pleased with that answer, then great. We've gotten our questions answered and we don't need them. Or if we feel like we need a presentation to answer those questions face to face, then maybe they come onto our next meeting if they're willing to do that at no cost.
I am really concerned with the scope. So I don't have a problem with the idea of having questions and submitting those to Nudge if Nudge is willing to pro bono answer more questions about park master plan. I mean, the park master plan is very large. And so, I mean, I think we could easily eat up an entire meeting with going through issues or, possibilities in the park master plan. Once again, the park master plan is a list of possibilities. So we can do that. I think getting them questions and that type of thing. I do think if we were to invite them to speak, it should be on one specific item, such as the trail, and limit the scope to the trail. If we open up the entire park master plan, then we're talking a half a day.
I don't think we have to open the entire plan, Phil.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The idea is, I think what Niccole is saying, if we have questions that we want as priorities, let's get those together. Because I don't have the time for going over the entire thing point by point either.
Yeah, but I think he's right. Let's be specific as to what our questions are going to be about. I mean, let's pick what exactly are they going to be about, the entire park master plan or some specific area. And so I think it's both of what you're saying. What specific parts of the master plan are we addressing? So, and I agree with that. And I don't even know if they need to be here for that. It may be that we could just submit our questions. I appreciate what Niccole was saying. We don't want to waste their time. So we can decide if just submitting questions is good, or do we need them to come out and answer those questions in person? Y'all can decide that. I'm fine either way.
I think for posterity, it would be great to have something written, because it can be passed on and shared with future board members, and a better use of the information than just it being with this current board.
That's
I
a good idea.
stand by my direction that until we are taking care of the park we have, that we don't create new development, new projects, new whatever, because we're still not taking care of the park the way we should. And as we've been talking about since 9:30 this morning, we don't have a ton of funds. I will say that Marnie did mention that the Women's Club would love to help us with the Waterwise Garden. So I don't want to get us too far off topic, but I do have to drop off at 11, which is in 17 minutes. And I wanted to make sure that hit the record that as we talk about funds and projects and things like that, we can look to the Women's Club for some additional funding, but they want a project.
Right.
I do have to interrupt. I have a hard stop right now, so I have to leave. Sorry, I can't go through the rest of the meeting.
No, thanks for being here, David.
Thanks for being here, David.
Well, wait, before you leave, David. So does everybody want to start thinking about what questions they want to submit then to Nudge? And maybe get those together, or how do y'all want to handle that?
I think that's a great place to start, and I'll make a motion that we generate questions and concerns for Nudge and can we send those to you, Ashley?
Why don't we have someone on the park board look at those first before we send with Amber and Ashley, because they, we need to agree on those questions and the wording
Focus
first, and make sure we're not duplicating efforts or making things not as clear as they should be, etc.
Yeah, I agree.
I like that. Have a point of collaboration.
I think staff needs to be that point. Otherwise you risk violating the Open Meetings Act.
Ooh.
Yeah. So what we do this, Ashley does this all the time. We'll reach out if two people submitted a similar agenda item. She will get in contact with both of them and say, hey, we feel it covers this item. Are you okay with, your presentation being under this item? So we can work on making sure that we don't duplicate at the very least.
Okay.
And Laurie, as far as you're concerned that the information be captured, even if Nudge doesn't do a presentation, if they answer their questions and put it in form, we can insert that into as an attachment in the meeting minutes and that type of stuff, so that that information could be captured for future groups and general, that type of thing. So whatever form, we can capture that information. So I'm hearing that we're going to be sending questions on to Ashley. Once again, I'm back to, we're looking to the good graces of Nudge to answer questions pro bono, and we don't have a solid answer on that one way or the other right now, but I'd be willing to do it if that is the agreement on by Nudge at that time. So.
And just to clarify, I mean, you do have the opportunity to all speak together with Nudge in a public meeting. So if that's something you'd prefer rather than getting something in writing, you have that option. These meetings are recorded, available forever. Ashley takes great minutes. So whatever, however the Park Commission would like best to communicate with Nudge, we are happy to facilitate that.
Well, back to
choice as to what they're willing to do for free.
right.
I think
yeah, maybe we ought to start there.
On what their willingness is.
Well, for the sake of timeliness, I'd like to see if we can get our questions answered first, just by submitting them, just to, I mean, we seem to have a lot in these meetings and there's so much to discuss. I'd like to see if we can just get what we need through submitting the questions. And if that's not satisfactory, then maybe set up a meeting. What do you guys think about that?
I agree, but I see Wendy has her hand raised. I'd like to recognize Wendy if we can hear what she has to say.
Oh, thank you, Phil. I was just going to ask Amber and Ashley if it would be possible, since when we did our park master plan, it was before we had live stream available and the videos recorded. They're audio recordings, but if it would be possible to take the meeting in which the Nudge presented our master plan to the Park Commission and then to the City Council, both of those meetings, and just provide those links to the Park Commission so that people could listen to the presentation at their leisure. That might help answer some questions. And then I'd just like to say that I had served on the Park Commission at the time we worked with Nudge, and they are fantastic to work with, and they didn't charge us for what they should have charged us for. They did many, many things for us, just out of the goodness of their heart. They have a relationship with some members in our community who had served on the City Council at the time I was serving on the Park Commission, and they connected us. And I think that through that relationship, we were able to get an amazing company to work on the master plan for us. That they did a lot of the pro bono, and that they did get paid for their services, but they just really went above and beyond and were so good to work with and so easy to work with. So I won't speak for them, but they never did charge us for coming in and answering questions or presenting information to the City Council. They were just willing to do it, and they've gone way above and beyond service for our city. So I think that we shouldn't expect them to do that all the time, but that has been what they've done for us. So
can we possibly get an answer from them if they're even willing before we take the time to create a list of questions and that type of thing? And maybe Ashley could check with them and then get back to us and say, yes, they're willing to pro bono answer questions. And if we can start, then we'll start generating the questions. Anybody? Ashley?
Sorry.
It sounds like Amber already reached out to Nudge, and so we're just waiting on a response from them. So I'm sure she'll be able to communicate that as soon as we receive a response.
So let's maybe hold off getting questions together. I mean, I think holding off getting questions together until we get that answer, but the questions are going to be questions regardless. So I don't know whether that makes any sense. Maybe go ahead and start creating questions now. I don't have strong feelings one way or the other. I'm just throwing it out there for you guys. I want us all to kind of be on the same page.
All right, let's start questions, and then hopefully we'll hear back from Nudge, and then we'll know which way to proceed. And like Wendy had suggested, maybe through those audio presentations that are already recorded, some of those questions might be answered already. And so at least we have some resources to start with. And then if we need additional support, we can reach out with specifics. How's that sound?
Sounds good to me.
I like it.
All right. Anything else on item number 5? Hearing none, moving on. I know Laurie's got to leave. Got 9 minutes.
9 minutes. What can we knock out?
Well, I'm trying to go down the list. I guess we're going on to I-9 proposal date times PDF. Discussion and possible action on a license agreement with I-9 Sports for use of the athletic fields.
Is this what we did last summer as well? Similar?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. My name's Justin Cannon, not Debbie Cannon, but I can't figure out how to get it to change, so I apologize for any confusion. Yes, we run, for those of you that may not remember, on the previous lease, we were actually at an approved vendor as a subleaser under the old agreement with Western Hills and Western Hills Softball. I know that those agreements have been changing, so I don't think we're technically an approved vendor. We were here last summer. We run summer camps Monday through Friday from 9 to 12. We use just the 2 baseball fields, actually. I think we were originally scheduled to use the 3rd field, but we decided that it'd just be easier for the communities and what they wanted to use that field. I think it's where the dogs are. So we just contained ourselves to the 2 baseball fields, which would be our plan this summer as well. And we asked for 4 weeks, 2 in June and 2 in July, I believe. And we're 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., boys and girls, 4 to 12. I will tell you that probably 75% of our participants last summer were Rollingwood kids. We had a ton of kids inside the community, and I will tell you that a lot of parents were very thankful that there was something that we could do. And we had 0 issues as it relates to COVID. We had some rain issues, but outside of that, 0 other issues. And since that summer, we've run over 10,000 participants across the state of Texas. So our safety protocols and things like that have been sorted through and fairly tried and true. So we've had very, very little issues as it relates to COVID. So we're hoping that you guys could approve our times and the field use, and let me know if you have any questions I can answer.
My first question is, so you're just on fields 1 and 2, is that?
Yeah, I mean, we'd love to have field 3, but I believe last time it was just easier to keep it in fields 1 and 2, so that you're not shutting down, especially in the summer, that time of day, the folks that do want to bring out their dogs and stuff. I mean, that's the prime time. So I'm happy to keep it at 1 and 2. It's up to y'all.
Well,
that would be great.
The fields is for kids. So, I mean, that's, if you can do it on 1 and 2, that makes things easier for the people who use the off leash area. But at the end of the day, it is for the use of the kids. I'm all for it.
Yeah, like I said, we'd love to be able to, the reason we wanted to use all 3 fields is it's, the more we can spread the kids, keep the kids a little bit more spread out. It's a little bit easier, but again, I'm just asking for approval. All 3 fields would be awesome, but we can make it work on the 2 if we need to.
I don't know if you want to have the kids on that field if the dog owners have been out there from 7 to 9.
Right. Yeah, it was, like I said, it was easier for us. So we're fine with 1 and 2. So for the purposes of these 4 weeks, I'm happy to keep our camps limited to fields 1 and 2 and keeping our numbers in relation to that as well.
Well, we don't want to stifle you the opportunity to grow if your quota is limited. Again, to Laurie's point, these fields are meant for children in the area specifically zoned for Eanes ISD. More than 70% of your roster is either Rollingwood or Eanes students. And so
100% are Eanes students. Okay. A large majority of them we're not the kind of camp that brings people from Round Rock. We're literally
Westlake.
It's Westlake.
And so my perspective is that as you get your numbers in, I would approve the usage of all 5 fields at Hatley because the back is considered 3, 4, and 5. As your numbers roll in, if you deem that space is adequate of what you need based off of your registration numbers, then I would approve using all that space. And if you find that, hey, you don't need all of that space, then you don't use it.
Okay.
I would agree.
I
Before that too.
Yeah, I believe that there is part of the use and enjoyment of the citizens rolling wood as well. And I think as friction point and that type of thing, it would be easier to limit it to 1 and 2 and not have the discussion about it. We could revisit it if the numbers go up and have it be revisited. But I think for sake of passing something today, saying that we're only really addressing 1 and 2 is the way to go.
I will tell you that we will not come back and ask for more, because I won't be able to have kids register and then not have a place for them. So we would set our limit today based on what this committee determines. So, you guys tell me.
I think it just makes sense to keep the 1 and 2. I mean, as far as the zoning and that type of thing, that was put in place so long ago and has been basically not adhered to the point where those restrictions are not really upholdable by the law or completely valid. Now, certainly the intent and the desire to service the kids and all of that kind of stuff is absolutely something that we should always keep in mind and be paramount to. But also, I think there is a matter of balancing that with other citizens in the park who have different needs. And it is our rolling wood park in general. And therefore, I think that trying to balance all of our different constituencies and being mindful that there are varying constituencies is just good policy as a neighborhood and as a park commission.
I make a motion. I'm looking at the dates and times in June. He's not even proposing anything to start before June 21st. So you have 20 days of June that no athletes are going to be on that field. I make a motion that we allow him the usage of the 3 fields. It's for a very short amount of time, a very small part of the day overall. And that's the motion that I make, is that I-9 Sports is able to use the 4 weeks that they proposed from 9 to noon, all 5 fields technically, having 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that's where I am.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Laurie Mills and a second to allow use of all 3 fields. I would like to at least express that if that were to pass, that just in the desire to be neighborly, that priority, and I believe I-9 would be priority would be to use 1 and 2 were this motion to pass. But we have a motion and a second. So let's, all those in favor of the motion, speak and raise hands.
The motion is for all 3 fields.
Understood.
Okay. Just making.
Understood.
Okay.
Support.
Okay, so Chad, Niccole, and Laurie all support for it. All those. Yes. Oh, and I see Mary Elizabeth has her hand raised.
Oh, wait, no, wait. I was wanting to speak. I do not.
Yes, that's what I wanted to hear from you prior to us taking the vote. So I roll back the vote. I would like to hear from Mary Elizabeth.
My concern is that for people my age, the mornings are the only time that we can get out. That is my concern. I'm out there in the mornings, and that's when I see people my age out there with their dogs. I'm sorry, it's just harder for us to be out when it gets later. And you're talking June and July. It gets very hot. I'm sorry, I'm pulling the age card. That's all I have to say.
No,
would 7 to 9 work? Since we don't start at 9 until 9, is that helpful?
That is somewhat helpful. But I see these people out there till about, actually to more like, I'd say 10 or 11, actually till about 10. And I just hate to limit them.
Not every day, and it's not.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
He has to make concessions, and this is this man's business, his livelihood, and it's for the kids. I mean, that's just my 2 cents. We can take a vote. Everybody.
Let's take a vote. That's what we're here for. That's
So
what-
can we take a roll call vote?
Yeah. Okay. So let me pull up the participants and take a roll call vote. So those in favor, and I guess the motion is to allow all 3 fields. Once again, even if that were to pass, I think it just makes more sense to try to go to 1 and 2 first, but motion is to use all the fields, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 for I-9 during those times. So I'm going to go down the roll call. And do we have enough people for this vote, by the way, with the, I know some people had to drop off. Do we still have quorum?
We do.
Okay. So running down, Don Hudson,
Oppose.
opposed. Niccole Maurici,
Approve.
approve. Laurie Mills,
Approve.
approve. Mary Elizabeth Cofer,
Oppose.
and I believe I get a vote, and I would be opposed to the motion as it currently exists.
Don't
What
forget
about
about
Chad?
Chad.
And Chad, sorry, Chad,
I'd approve.
approve. So we have
3 and 3.
3 and 3, 3 yeas, 3 nays.
David.
I would be willing to, if we limit it to 1 and 2, then there would be a different vote.
I'm texting the attorney. I've never had a tie vote at a park commission meeting. And so if we could just maybe hold on this, move on to the next item. And then once I get confirmation, I will check back in with y'all to let him know what his determination is and how we move forward on a 3-3.
Are there any other things that need a vote if I need to drop off?
Can we get David back on the phone to vote in?
Yeah.
Sure.
Text him. I'm gonna text him.
Is this by simple majority, or does this have to be a 2/3 or something like that? That's another question for the attorney.
Simple majority is fine.
Simple majority of those in attendance.
That would be, but it was, and now they're trying to grab somebody who was out of attendance in order to get a vote.
We'll just let the attorney decide what he wants to do. It shouldn't be.
Just a quick question. So am I safe to assume that the 4 weeks are at least approved for 2 fields?
Yes.
Yes.
And then you
I
guys
would
will
say-
let me know what the outcome will be as far as the 3rd field and the usage of that?
Yes.
Okay. And I will, thank you. I'll wait. I guess I'll hear from that. I appreciate everybody's time, and I know the kids will love, and the parents that have emailed me will love to know that we'll be back in Rollingwood. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time and all you do.
Appreciate it.
I have a question. This will come up, but is the fee that his organization pays for the use of the parks, is that already set and approved?
I believe city council is the one who approves that. At least that's the way it worked last year. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Amber and Ashley, I think, isn't that, it went to city council and then y'all did a sublease with Western Hills Little League. And then those funds were earmarked for M&O for the park. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so. Mhm.
Okay.
And last year it was
Last year it went to Little League, but the way that we've restructured the lease, it goes to the city council. Oh, was it already in place last year, Steve?
Yeah, we didn't,
Okay.
because we were like in limbo with the lease last year. I had him negotiate directly with the city to pay directly to the city last year.
But okay, that makes sense. In
And
the
they-
past,
and they-
when
and they
our
paid a
lease
fair-
agreement,
Yeah, and they paid a fair value of an hourly rate to get those fields. So it does bring in a good amount of money for the city, more than
and
other commercial use people.
the way our lease is written is that the subleases now go through the city instead of through Little League. And then the money is earmarked to stay with the park for improvements to the fields. So it is a direct money to funding the park and the fields.
Thank you for that clarification.
Okay. Well, I guess for now we're off of that item. So we're on to item number 8, discussion and possible action on a general park maintenance schedule recommendation regarding maintenance of water-wise garden and landscaping throughout the park.
Phil, I think you and I both had a similar request to add onto the agenda for this month. And so if you want to mention what you had, and then I can kind of finish it
Well,
off.
I looked at yours. I did have a couple of things. So I was more interested in us tracking specifically when we're watering, how much we're watering, also when it rains, and therefore right now, you know, we're kind of watering Monday, Wednesday, and Friday or something like that, like when we wouldn't be doing that as a result of how much rain we got, that type of thing. And the desire is to find out how we can best start rejuvenating all of our parkland and best maintaining that. Including that would be, when are we mowing, how, you know, just tracking all of those metrics as far as mowing, watering, weeding, pruning, all of that kind of stuff on some kind of a shared Google Doc or something of that nature. I saw that, you know, you were addressing kind of different items, and it seemed, or at least some of the things were different items, and some of it was as a result of making sure that things were addressed on the park walkthroughs and work requests and that type of thing. So, so that was what I had to add to it, was really trying to track, I guess, a lot of our day-to-day, what's being done, how much time is it taking, so that we know we have adequate staff, all of that, all of those metrics, trying to capture those.
Yeah, and that's great. I didn't even, you know, Laurie and I kind of came up with this loosely when we did our monthly walkthrough on April 20th. And just to add to yours, you know, we didn't consider the water schedule and the mowing schedule. And so that's certainly something that can go on, whether it's a weekly, a daily, monthly, or quarterly. And to your point of just trying to, Carrie Kaler, who's now our liaison from the city end, she had made that suggestion to me when I did a walkthrough with her back at the end of March, is to say a lot of the repeated issues that we send over to Public Works could be just addressed in a monthly schedule or quarterly, or, you know, however we propose it. And then it's a matter of just coming up with that schedule, being agreeable with it, and communicating it out so that we are all aware of when things are happening within the park, and setting a protocol and an understanding of what that looks like from, you know, the maintenance and operations perspective.
Right.
I'm sorry. My concern is I feel like Vicki doesn't have time to do everything that needs to be done. I mean, the weeding, just the weeding alone, it's not getting done. We have weeds growing up in the trail itself. I mean, I'm doing it in the mornings. I had a friend of mine with me this morning. She's turning 85 Thursday, and she's down there trying to help me weed the trail itself. I mean, I think it's amazing that you can get weeds growing up through that crushed granite. I'm afraid Vicki doesn't have time for all this. I feel like we need to get her some more help.
Well, maybe it is like, to the three of us and Laurie as well, is to say, okay, what are all of these maintenance issues that we have? Let's look at them systematically, and then reasonably, can they be achieved, and how consistently, without burdening our, you know, Vicki, who's amazing and has done so much and gone above and beyond. So again, that's what this dialogue is about, is to say, how can we collaborate as the commission and put together some sort of a checklist to say, here's what we're hoping to have on a regular basis, a consistent basis. To Laurie's point, to say we need to keep our park and our biggest asset looking and functioning properly. And then from Vicky's perspective or the city end, is this reasonable? And if not, what do we need to do? And how do we, come up with a mutual agreement?
Right. I mean, I'm looking at all those, the stonework on the side over there where, right before it goes down to the park below. And when I think it was AT&T or whoever did that pole there where, where the playground is, when they did that, they never put the stones back in place. And then on that same side where, over close to the bleachers, where we have that runoff, now those stones are out of place. I can't, I'm not strong enough to put all that back in place.
Well, that's a separate issue. If you're talking about the edging that goes around the walking trail, that's a completely different, like,
my point
that's not general maintenance. That's a safety, like, if we're addressing those as safety issues of tripping hazards and things that would cause somebody harm. This is just truly, for lack of better words, the nuts and the bolts of what needs to happen in order to keep the green and to be able to keep the dead kind of pruned. And then what do we do moving forward?
Okay, I'm not really worried about people tripping over that, but I get it is a separate issue. I'll agree. Yeah. So you're right, but we still need to do something about that and that the weeds and stuff. And I'm not sure what it is.
Okay, so then in addition to this, we have to add on their weeding and water schedule. Is there anything else that the commission is thinking that we need to add on to this?
Well, are we going to ever cut out that dead rosemary?
Well, that's great. You asked that question because that's sort of segueing into the next component of this, which is the water-wise garden, which the stuff that is dead and is not going to be coming back to life, given that horrible storm that we suffered. And we have to decide, are we ready for this city? Because Vicky's ready to pull all that stuff out. And she said, but I don't want to do it until y'all decide what are you going to replace it with? And just don't be in sticker shock when you see it's vacant and it's empty, because those have grown so large that her recommendation, when I spoke with her, and I don't mean to speak on her behalf, but she's not here, is that I want to remove the dead rosemary, but the commission has to tell me, do you want to replace it? And just realize that it's going to look a little bit empty until it grows and matures like what you have currently now.
So are those rosemaries up on the trail part of the water-wise garden?
No, they're not. But that's why we were addressing the water-wise garden, and then we were going to take that and adopt it into all areas of the park, so that she would have carte blanche to be able to, if we agreeable to this process, that she would be able to go and do this without us having to come to a monthly meeting, put it on an agenda, and then give her permission to go and do it.
I totally agree with not overburdening Vicky with having to come to us to ask every little thing every single time. However, what I would like to propose is when things are removed, that there be the already having the replacement of the same material to go back in. If you're taking something out that's dead and you're replacing it with the same plant that's alive, albeit probably smaller, I think that that's something that we ought to give Vicky carte blanche on. I do think there'll be a lot more concerns if things are being removed and replaced with other things that might not be on our approved list that was put together by our very esteemed botanist, or different things of that nature. I think that bears a larger degree of scrutiny and discussion. But if you're taking something out that's dead, replacing it with something that's the exact same plant but alive, albeit smaller, absolutely give her full reign on that.
I also agree with you, Phil. I think that it just helps keep things on a consistent basis and are addressed on an ongoing basis versus waiting 1 to 2 months or possibly longer to get a direction from us as the commission, when it's pretty simple. But again, we had a heated argument, or shouldn't say argument, conversation about this a couple months ago with something that had to have been taken out due to the storms and the severity. And so we don't want that to happen. We don't want any contention and dissension amongst our community with regard to this. We all want to protect this asset. And that's what we're trying to do, is just say, are we all agreeable that when something is not going to come back to life, if it's dead, that it's deemed dead, she has the authorization to remove it, replace it with the same like kind, and kind of move on.
And she respectfully waited a good amount of time to see if it did come back. And I really appreciated
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely.
So she was great. So I agree. That's take it out and replace it with the same thing.
So would we like to make a motion then I'm going to make a motion that City, Public Works, Vicky, whomever's in that role, has the authorization to remove anything that is dead from the landscaped garden areas and replace it with what was there previously throughout the park.
And they would only be removing when they have the plant to replace it at the time, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So a motion by Niccole Maurici to
I'll
give,
second it.
and second by Mary Elizabeth Cofer. So I want us just to be real clear on what the motion is, and I'm going to try to, you tell me if I misspeak it, but what I'm hearing is giving the public works person full authority to remove any dead plants and replace those with the same genus of plant at the time of removal. That's what I'm hearing. Is that correct from everyone? I see a shaking of head by Niccole. Okay, so motion by Niccole, second by Mary Elizabeth Cofer. All those in favor, say aye. Raise hand.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously too. And I know that hopefully I'll help Vicky out a lot. So that's great.
Thank you. And then the second part of this agenda item was about coming up with the maintenance schedule. So maybe if y'all are agreeable with it, I'm just going to try to put it into a spreadsheet, adding in the weeding and watering, and then send that over to maybe Ashley to fill in once you've had a conversation with Vicky to see what that reasonably looks like. And then that way we have a working document that says this is what Park Commission is hoping that Public Works will be able to perform on a monthly basis or whatever the time frame is. And Public Works is agreeable to that. And then we all know what should be happening at what part of the month. Does that sound reasonable?
Sounds reasonable. I have a thing. So I wanted to put in mowing. I didn't hear you say mowing.
Mowing, watering, and
right.
weeding. Okay.
Weeding and edging, all of that. What I'm hearing is creating a schedule, trying to nail down to make sure that all that stuff gets scheduled. And then because of rain and nature being nature, I would like to have columns of, yes, that got done and when did it get done kind of thing. So both a schedule of a desired intent on when things get performed, and then a tracking of, yes, it happened and when did it happen and that type of thing. So I want both parts.
Well, could you do that if you don't mind? That would be super helpful.
If you can put together the draft of the schedule part, I will add the part of when and all of that, try to figure out how we will actually do the tracking part. Can we work together on it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Hey, Phil, Carrie's got something to add to this.
Okay.
Hi.
Hey,
Carrie.
I've been in here listening to the meeting. I wanted to jump in on this. We have a maintenance schedule.
Great.
Yeah, we've got one. As far as having her document every time she runs the weed eater, that's just not realistic.
Okay.
I don't want to be an obstructionist, and I want, but I think part of this is that I had her hold off on just removing and weeding because of the pushback she got because of the Waterwise garden. So I had her wait as far as rosemary and everything else, but we have a regular schedule for mowing and weed eating, and that is all dependent on water and wastewater stuff. So it's all, we have a general idea of how often she needs to do it, but sometimes it's going to be more because of rain. And then sometimes that schedule is going to be interrupted, and it's just not feasible for us to be reporting back every time, you know, one of these items, you know, we have the manpower to do the work, but we don't have the manpower to do the paperwork.
Totally get that. Totally understand. I'm trying to get, you know, as a person on the park commission who's up at the park, I do hear concerns. So what I'm trying to do is get some way to make sure that concerns get addressed and aren't upsetting for the neighborhood, or you guys don't get pushback and all of that sort of thing. So we're just trying to put in workability.
I don't anticipate that based on the motion that y'all just approved of letting us replace what's already there.
I'm hearing more about the watering and the mowing. So maybe that's just something that we need to discuss off, you know, whatever, discuss outside of the meeting. But those are the kind of concerns that I'm specifically hearing. I mean, I think that the fields are getting much better as a result of us having rain. And I know we've gotten a lot better about consistently watering on the fields as well, and that type of thing. So this may not be necessary because now it's getting better addressed. I'm willing to, I totally get the burdensome nature of tracking every little bit.
I think if you'll give us a couple months to just implement what you've just approved and go through the schedule that we've got, and then if there's something that's needs addressing, you know, we can bring this back. I think that would behoove everybody and everybody's time if you're amenable to that.
I'm amenable to that.
Okay.
Does anybody else have objections or concerns? Niccole?
No, and I think the proof will be in the pudding, right? So
Right,
this is why we
for
don't
sure.
need the tracking system, is we're going to see that these things are being addressed, but there's an explanation as to why they haven't, because we had pushback from a couple months ago. So this is why, again, we're just wanting to make this clear that we give y'all authority, we trust you,
Right.
and we're here to just say thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. And the authority, again, is to remove and replace with the exact same plants at any time that you rock on. So there we go.
Thank you.
All right.
We appreciate the support.
Yeah, thank you, Carrie. All right, I think we're good.
Phil, I did hear back from the city attorney. The motion fails for lack of being affirmatively approved.
Okay.
So basically what will happen is that this will be a recommendation of well, unless y'all wanted to take another vote and make some sort of recommendation to council, but this will, the lease or the rental agreement.
I would like to recommend that fields 1 and 2, like, I don't want to hold up and I don't want to be in the way of I-9 and what they're intending. I think it's all great. I would just like to make it clear that 1 and 2, there's a lot of space on 1 and 2. I think it can be made workable with that. Especially, hopefully we're getting out of COVID, and therefore there won't be so much concern about having people having to be spaced so far apart and that type of thing outside. So
Do you want to put forth that as a motion then?
all right, I'll put first a motion that we approve I-9 for use of fields 1 and 2 for now only during the times that they're requesting. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Motion by Phil McDuffie and second by Mary Elizabeth Cofer. All those in favor? Or we should take a roll call, I suppose, even though I know Laurie would, I'm assuming Laurie would, well, I don't know. I can't speak for Laurie. So let's take a roll call. Chad Smith.
Approve.
Approve. Don Hudson.
Approve.
Mary Elizabeth Cofer.
Approve.
Niccole Maurici. Niccole, you need to be unmuted.
Abstain.
Abstain. And Phil McDuffie approve. I believe the motion would pass with that.
Niccole, sorry to be a pain. You can only abstain if you have a conflict of interest. So you feel free to vote no, feel free to vote
All right,
yes.
then I say no, because I
Okay.
believe that these fields should be for the kids' activities, and that's what they're deeded for. And I think that it's being very unreasonable to keep these kids off fields for a very small part of the summer. So I say no.
Okay, understood. So let me go back to the list. I keep having to pull stuff up. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 yays and 1 nay. And with that, I think that motion passes. And so I-9's great and ready to go on fields 1 and 2. And hopefully that will serve the neighborhood as a whole. So with
I
that,
think, Amber, I think for clarification, is it correct that the Park Commission can make a recommendation to the City Council? So this is a recommendation, just for clarification, by the City
Sure.
Council, I mean, by the Park Commission to the City Council. So just for anyone out there who is listening, there is going to be another opportunity for public comment from anyone who wants to comment on this issue about approving a contract for the use of the fields at our next City Council meeting, because only the City Council can actually enter into an agreement with an organization. So if, you know, just
Okay.
to put that out there so everybody understands.
oh, that's great. So thank you, Wendy. So that's the recommendation to City Council is for 1 and 2. And yes, there will be opportunity for the community as a whole to weigh in on it at the City Council meeting. So I think that that's even better. So is that covered at this point? Hearing that,
Yes.
believe we are. All right. On to item 9, discussion possible action to address erosion and maintenance issues on existing crushed granite trail in the park to investigate possible stabilizing surfaces or materials and to address a connection trail from upper to the lower park. And I believe that's you, Don.
Okay. The trail, the connection trail, let me talk about that briefly first. We've talked to a civil engineer who I don't think we have the guidance for him to provide a real constructive solution. And I think we do need to understand how this trail dovetails with the master plan. This is why I think it's a great idea that we're getting a hold of Nudge and making sure we understand exactly how that works in their eyes, since they did the master plan. And that's really, there's not much we can go forward on that until there's a lot of variables. And so Mary Elizabeth, did you want to comment?
Yes, I talked to Tim Eischen, and I know they're real busy on the Violet Crown Trail, but he said he'd be perfectly happy to come to speak to us as a group and talk to us about both these issues, not just about that trail, but as Wendy had talked about interest about possibly using an interest in maybe the binder to deal with the erosion issues on the trail itself. And especially when I walked the trail this morning, you know, I'm there 5 days a week, at least. And the erosion after this weekend's rain is pretty bad. So this is actually pretty timely. Maybe we ought to find out when he's available to come and talk to us about this. Because I don't know if we don't want to wait a month for the next park commission meeting. Maybe we should get him. He's met with you and Phil.
Yeah, if he could put together some, and I don't know if this is even possible, but obviously, if that were to come before the Park Commission, there would be agenda materials included, but maybe if some of that can be put together as well. I did walk with Don. I love those materials that were presented.
They were impressive. They were the trail he built is just amazing. It's wonderful.
He's getting known all over the United States for this. I mean, so what should we ask him to do? To come meet, maybe talk to Wendy and Niccole next and walk on the trail?
Here's what I think. I think that there's two things. There's the connecting trail. And I think until we get nudged to make sure we understand how that, is there any wiggle room in where that trail runs?
Well, the answer to that,
I think it's probably set by the master plan.
Yeah, I agree with where Don's going down this path. I think we have two issues that are coming out of this, which is great. This is the whole point of what we're doing is we're looking at this and investigating is that we're finding as we investigate the connecting trail from the upper to lower park, that there's drainage issues involved. There's potentially tie into the rebuild or remodel of City Hall. And the scope of work is much grandeur than what I believe that our commission would be able to see through. And then you've got the stabilization of our current trail at the upper park and at the lower park. That would be a separate agenda item. And so the little bit that I've gotten information on, my recommendation would be to table the connection trail between the upper and the lower park until we know more what's coming from the City Hall rebuild or remodel because of the drainage issues that are involved there, and then separate the stabilization of our current trail and then continue to, bring more information and data to that as to what it would look like and what that project could do. And if we could possibly fund it through grants or through looking at RCDC or other means to be able to go ahead and achieve that.
I agree. So maybe meeting with just to address the trail, the current trail, and table this other for now until we see what City Hall. You know what? I think you're exactly right on target, Niccole.
Well, the other great thing is, so first off, I'm sorry, guys. I need clarification. I haven't been involved in all of these discussions quite as much as you guys. So, Don, when you say the engineer that you met with, you're talking about the city engineer or
Rick Thompson, civil engineer.
Rick Thompson. Okay, great. All right. So, just I need to understand what's going on there. So as far as stabilizing the current trail, somehow I would like as many people to be able to get familiar with the materials that were presented on the Violent Crown Trail. And the reason I really particularly like those materials, and there's two different ones. There's one that's kind of a oatmeal based that swells and then contracts as it dries out, and that's still water permeable and that type of thing. And then there's another that is much more rigid and also more expensive that basically turns the material into something more like asphalt or concrete. However, it will still look like the decomposed granite. It's a mixing in with the decomposed granite. So basically, as far as the look and the feel of the trail, for the most part, it stays consistent. And that's what I really like about the material, first and foremost. I don't know how to get people familiar with that product or those products as quickly as possible. I love the idea of using them as needed on stabilizing our current trail, and then that would be a great way for everybody to really get boots on the ground, familiar with those products, and those would be much smaller, much less expensive applications, and would provide a real world test case for those materials. And then if we wanted to use those down the road for some of our other projects, everybody's already familiar with those. So that's kind of the way I would like to see it go. Go, Don.
I think the best thing we could do with Tim is to invite him to a park walkthrough and let him walk that trail and just observe, this can be repaired in this way. I think a Q&A with him, or question and answer, I think would be inefficient, but I think he would look at the trail and he said, well, you need to do this here, and you need to do this here, and you need to do this here. And this guy really knows his stuff. And I think I'd approach it that way. And I'm out of town starting this Thursday for probably 3 weeks. So if he met us at the next park walkthrough, I won't be able to be there, but I think
Well, the park walkthrough is limited to two park commission members.
Okay, well, I'm not scheduled. I'm not scheduled for that. one either.
Three. You could get up to three because that's not going to be a quorum. So up to three could be.
We
So
definitely.
me and Don, go ahead, Mary Elizabeth.
Definitely need Niccole to be there. So maybe Niccole and Laurie.
And either Chad or David.
Yeah,
maybe.
let's do that. I know what he's going to say. So let's do Niccole and Laurie and either Chad or David. What do you think, Niccole?
It's up to them.
I'd love to. I'm trying to see, is this, okay, so if he comes out here, is he going to, I think about what Laurie had mentioned before about bringing in Nudge, like, is there a cost to the city to have him come out, consult, and do a formal estimate and recommendation?
No, but you know, Niccole, what I'm going to do, this is, he's real busy. He would come out and do just a quick walkthrough. It's going to be very informal.
Right.
Let's schedule something informal, and I'm going to actually put you in touch with him, and you set it up. Okay. He's a personal friend of mine. It became a professional thing that he'd started after a friendship. So I've known him for like, I don't know, 30 years, and he's not that much older than 30.
You won't bite me?
No.
Just kidding.
So my point is
He's
this.
a good guy.
I think it's easiest for me to put you guys in touch.
Great.
And let you schedule it than me getting in the middle of it, because he's that busy.
And I'll get 2 other commission folks that have not gone out to the trail and
exactly
get that coordinated.
And
Awesome.
I think what this could do for our trail is spectacular.
Yeah.
And I think this could solve a lot of our problems. I mean, if we got rid of the whole problem with the erosion, I mean, this would be amazing. I was so glad you brought this up.
Yeah, I agree too. So that'd be great, Niccole, if you can put that together with a couple of other park commission members, not Don, not me, not Mary Elizabeth, but that would be great. Anybody else that wanted to go out?
Happy to attend too if you want to loop me in, Niccole.
For sure. That would be awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we need
Love
a
it.
motion
We're
for
making
this?
progress.
Do we need a motion for that, or is that just?
Well, I'm going to make the motion that we're going to table the connectivity trail from the upper to the lower park indefinitely. And then, so should we vote on that first?
Well, does this mean we will not try to contact Nudge? We will not try to do anything to move that forward?
No, it means that, well, I guess it,
pretty much it does, at least not now.
I mean, if we table it indefinitely, maybe we table it until right now we don't have a clear path. I don't see any risk in trying to identify what that trail would be like. I mean, I would really be interested in hearing Nudge's thoughts on that. And I think we already decided we were going to send them some questions. So maybe
but you know what?
Table it till next week or till next month.
The thing is we're talking, what Niccole brought up was that we kind of don't really know what City Hall's going to look like. And it kind of does make a difference what happens with City Hall. We're almost putting the cart before the horse.
Correct. So I think that the motion would be to table the connectivity trail from the upper to the lower park as laid out in the master plan until we understand further what is happening with the City Hall remodel or rebuild because of the drainage issues associated with that connectivity trail in that location as proposed in the master plan.
So wait
until further development comes with City Hall's recommendation to either remodel, rebuild, and to see how that connectivity trail would formulate into that.
Makes sense.
So that's a motion.
That's the motion. However, we want to shortchange it.
Yeah, I
Paraphrase
understand.
it.
So Niccole Maurici made a motion,
I'll second.
seconded by Don. I'm still trying to make sure we've got enough people involved, but I think we do. So what was that? All those in favor? Okay. Oh, good. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
Was that David?
Chad.
Oh, Chad?
No, I'm not opposed.
Oh, not
I'm
opposed. So you're
I
in
was-
favor.
I was in favor. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, great. All right, excellent. So the motion to table, looking at the connecting, and for now, I guess, asking Nudge for more good graces and information temporarily has been put off.
So we're not gonna.
No, we can ask questions, but we're not going to continue to pursue bringing this project to life.
Okay.
We'll collect information. That's okay.
Okay. Okay. All right.
And then the second motion would be to further investigate the material that could help stabilize our current existing upper and lower trail. That would be the second.
Okay.
We don't need to make a motion on that though, do we?
I don't think so. I mean, that's just going to be you getting together with 2 other council people.
It's just going to be a reoccurring agenda item moving forward into these next months.
Okay,
Well,
now
we do want to get Tim to weigh in on maintenance of the trail around the ball fields, I think.
Well, that's what she's saying, Don.
Okay, that's a recurring thing. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't think that requires a motion. I mean, basically that's just up to you scheduling with all the people and going with that. I mean, we could make a motion, but I'm pretty sure it passes. So I don't know. I think we're good on that. I mean, I think we're all in agreement that investigating and becoming more knowledgeable on all of the different materials that are at hand for us to beautify our park is always good work. So I think we're good. I'm going to say that. If I get
And you
my
guys,
head cut off.
it's getting
That's
late. We need to move.
I know. That's what I'm trying to do. Number 10, discussion and possible action to a recommendation to City Council regarding parking along the east side of the ball fields and relocation of the boulders to allow for additional parking. This is Niccole.
Yes. All right. When Laurie and I did our walkthrough last month, we were taking the lineup, the visual lineup from the rear parking to the front toward Rollingwood Drive, sorry. And the boulders are all very kind of scattered. And I tried to take some images that you could see in the attachment there. And the recommendation would be, and I don't even know if this is remotely possible or not, and forgive my drawing that I put on that map. I'm not exactly savvy with this kind of stuff, but I just wanted to give you guys an idea of the areas that we had discussed is basically from just south or just beyond the dog fountain, all the way up toward, kind of where the dumpster sits right now from the WAC. And to be able to align those boulders more in a straight line, hugging the walking trail, and to see if we could actually get some lines painted that would help with the traffic that comes there on the weekends and just through the summer usage, et cetera, et cetera. Not sure how anybody feels about this. If we feel compelled to discuss it further, I'm happy to kind of give more insights to it, but apparently we can't make any changes to parking without City Council's approval. So I did a little research and it said typical parking spaces are about 8 to 9 feet wide with about 18 feet in between. And if you did that, it could possibly lead to, this amount of parking spaces. But again, that just simple measurements just to kind of give everybody an idea of what parking looks like there. And do we want to have some sort of more organized parking assignments in that particular area?
Okay. So I did look at your thing. I just want to be So you were having the parking kind of not be perpendicular to the fence line or the fields. It was more of kind of an angled configuration. And I
Well,
believe,
that or I don't care how that, I
Okay.
couldn't supposed to go straight. It just was, right now we have one parallel to the walking path and then we have it perpendicular to the walking path is what you see in that existing parking photo on slide, I guess, 3. And so what I was proposing, I don't care if it's angular, straight, whatever, I'm not that parking expert, but the idea was is just to be able to park cars back and forth like that.
understood.
Versus only one side being parallel and the other side being perpendicular.
Okay. There's a couple things. One is I'm concerned about the level of, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but the overhang, like a 4x4 truck when it's backing up right now, and I've watched that happen a lot of times, they will extend over the boulders. Basically, they go back until their wheels touch the boulders and their tail beds extend and go further back and basically even go back onto the trail. So I have a slight safety concern about that. But you were saying 14 feet in between the parking spaces, which I don't know if we've really got enough space, but the biggest concern that I would raise, I think this needs to go be run by the police and EMS individuals, because I think there may be an issue with creating a squeeze point that will not allow EMS and fire or anybody else to get to that back area. I could just see a situation where a child gets hit with a bat and can't really be moved, and they're on the back part of those fields, and you need to get an EMS in there, and suddenly now we're so restricted that you can't get an EMS truck, which are wider than your average vehicle, through that area. So that's those are some of the concerns I have about it. I mean, I like the idea of trying to get as much parking in there as possible and that type of thing. And there's a whole nother, I think I looked yesterday when walking around the park, and I was looking at the cars that were parked in our parking lot up by the field house. And overwhelmingly, they were Suburbans, which are about 19 feet long, Ford 4x4s that are like 19 and a half feet long, that type of thing. There's a lot of SUVs. So that's predominantly who currently parks in those areas when there's a game. There might be some smaller cars that use a lot less space, but those are my concerns.
And those are very valid concerns. And again, it was just trying to see if there's a way that we could get a little bit more systematic, organized parking
Sure.
in that area. And it might not work. It's interesting because it kind of mirrors a little bit of what the master park plan projects, but I think some of that is utilizing some of the field space to make that happen. And again, it was, if it's something that we think we want to continue to pursue, great. And if not, then that's okay too.
Anybody else, or any of the public can also raise their hand if they were to desire. I'd love to hear from you, Steve.
I just say, parking is on Saturdays is always an issue. So anything that can maybe organize it a little bit better would be good, because all it takes is 1 or 2 cars just doing whatever they want. It throws it all off. But yeah, I guess valid concern of how to get emergency vehicle, fire truck or EMS car into the back lot. Do we have enough space, or could we make enough space with what we have right there?
Yeah. I also have a thing of, I think even before we investigate, if we were to go down this road, and if city council were to want to do this, if we made a recommendation, all that, before painting lines, and first off, I think we need to stick with a permeable surface there just because of our flooding issues, particularly over on Pleasant Cove and Nixon, as much as we can not add more impenetrable surface. So I don't know if we can paint lines without asphalting the area or concreting it or something like that. But even if we were to go down that road, I think if we put up, you know, temporary ribbon that was nailed down or something along those lines, just to see, does this even work, would be valid. But just looking at the area, I think there's, personally, I see cars pulling in perpendicular. I also see them pulling in sometimes at a slight angle to that fence line of the pool. And most of them just backing out currently and turning around is pretty much maxing out the current space. I do know that cars park parallel to those boulders right now. And so there's already a squeeze point being created. But I think you need to look at allowing traffic as much as possible to flow both ways. That's the other thing, is if we narrow it to a one-way, now you've got all those people in those back parking lots who, if they start pulling out and then you get 3 cars pulling in from Rollingwood Drive, now you've got one lane and everybody kind of standing at a standstill until whoever decides to back completely up and let the others through first goes. So it's a very tight area. I like the idea. I mean, I like the idea of trying to get more parking. Unfortunately, I just don't think we've got the land to accommodate it.
It would seem to me that a fairly simple thing to do would be to get somebody to provide us with a layout. And, you know, there's a lot of ways to mark things. You could bury you could put a layer of rocks buried, like the rocks that lined the trail, sticking up an inch above the ground.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to do that. I think a little could be gained by just defining the parking spaces.
That was the whole idea behind this, is that we haven't really visually looked at what this could lead to with a reasonable parking area, because it's been undefined, you know, since we've been a resident here. So I'm sure, I don't know how long it's been that way. It was one of those on the walk, like, is there any way that we could help bring some kind of orderly sense to this area? That is, to Steve's point, if some person decides to park in an obscure way, it's now limited other people from being.
You have to have them pulling in square, pulling in perpendicular to the roadway, or else if you just pull in at an angle the easy way, now you have to back out.
Right, exactly.
Or do a U-turn, and we don't have room for a circular.
Right.
You know, so it's
I can see that. I wish this was happening more while we had the games going on. I know sometimes I've driven up there while games were going on Saturday, and my very unscientific read on it is that people were pretty good at packing in as tightly as they can with each other. I mean, once again, we're talking kind of a close-knit group that hopefully people can talk to each other and go, hey, can you tighten up your car? And then maybe I can pull my car in there, and that type of thing. There's also a variety of vehicles. I'm worried that if we were to paint lines, now you get the one car that's wider and they take a space and a half, and now that throws everything off, you know, that type of situation occurring. But I'm just trying to look at what there is. My read is that for the most part, every once in a while you get somebody who does park poorly or improperly. I know from time to time, police have had to go up there and request somebody to move their car because suddenly now cars can't get in and out and that type of thing. So those situations have occurred. I anticipate that those might occur no matter what we do. I'm thinking it's so tight, and I really believe that the biggest issue we face is the safety that this might create as a result of not allowing EMS and that type of thing. When you see, I would invite everybody who has a large SUV to drive up there, park your car, and then try to turn around with the boulders being where they are and envision where the boulders will be if we move them a foot. I don't think we have a lot more space than a foot, maybe a foot and a half, that we could move them closer to the trail. But once again, if we do that, we may be endangering people who, and particularly small children who are on the trail and should feel secure and safe. And now a 4x4's bumper extends over the trail. I would really hate to see us create some kind of a tragedy. But
Wendy?
Hi, I'm sorry. I guess you didn't see my hand up, Phil.
oh no, I didn't. Sorry.
That's
Go for
okay.
it.
I just wanted to offer just a little bit of perspective from having kind of been serving on the park commission and transitioning to the city council, just historic. So when the park commission was looking at the master plan, this area did come up as an area that needed to be looked at for organization. And in the park master plan, if you go onto the city website where the supporting documents are for the master plan, there is an attachment there, an addendum to the park master plan that talks about rolling wood parking options. And it gives very inexpensive ways to help organize the parking. Railroad ties, for instance, in front of the cars as opposed to the boulders because they don't take up as much space. Also, concrete wheel stops were looked at. Keeping the pervious cover that's there, not making a formalized parking area that's out of concrete. Also burying limestone edging, as Dawn had mentioned, you know, the kind of edging that surrounds the trail so that people could see that that would kind of show how people could park in a more organized way. And then I don't know if y'all have seen those survey whiskers that stick up when people are surveying, those plastic whiskers that stick out of the ground. Really inexpensive option to put survey whiskers up so that people could see just how they can be more organized in parking, because most people want to be conscientious and not park over the lines. The other thing that was really important to the park commission at the time was tree root preservation and not having parking on the existing large trees that we have over there. So I think organized parking will help to protect the trees over there as well. We did put butter sticks around some of the larger trees that were getting parked over. And then one of the other conversations, Chad and Steve, that the Park Commission has had that's ongoing with Little Leagues is just realigning the fence and straightening it out so that it's more in line with what the master plan shows, and having, you know, more of a multi-use field is something that we envision for the area. So it is something to consider as working with the Little League while we're working on the fencing options to help straighten out that fence. And maybe realign some of the fencing as long as Little League is able to preserve their field size that they need for play. So those are all some things that I think I just wanted to kind of bring up that are things that have been discussed in the past. And I will put myself on mute.
No, well, don't go away. Don't go away. I got a question real quick. So when the parking was drafted in that park master plan, was were the police and EMS consulted and looked at with all that?
Yes, Nudge Design is the one that built it out with all of the rules in place for safety and organization. So if you look at the actual master plan, it is different from what this interim plan would be of just reorganizing the parking that we have now. The actual master plan shows an idea for finishing out the entire area, having a turnaround up there to drop off kids. It is different than what's envisioned in the interim document that just shows some inexpensive ways to help organize the parking so that we can get, you know, we can just get people in there without having to spend a fortune trying to finish out a parking lot that we just don't have the funds to finish out right now. And, you know, of course, it's not designed or engineered, so that this is something that we could do that wouldn't cause it's not envisioned to be on both sides. That would be something that we would need to look at, because I think what Nudge envisioned was just organizing the existing parking that's there now, not moving the boulders. But I do think that would need an evaluation by somebody who is more qualified than I, and that's above my pay grade. So I don't know the answer to that part, but I do think it's worth investigating if y'all want to.
I don't think we have the space to do the 2 rows, sadly. I mean, but I could see putting up something temporary along the fence line of the pool, for lack of a better term, to see if there's a temporary way to organize those and then see if it works, you know, see if people park over them or something like that. If that gets more cars parked in that area in a more organized way and takes off some of the traffic on Rollingwood Drive and the neighborhood, then I don't see why anybody would have an objection to that. I wouldn't want to put in anything permanent until we know that it actually works. But that's just
Bill,
my thought.
I just have one more comment on that.
Yeah.
I do think that if y'all are thinking about looking at this in context with the trail improvements and with the master plan and with a potential multi-use field and potentially realigning fencing, I think that it all needs to be looked at together, because if you do want to realign fencing to make the multi-use field eventually, then that does require you to move the trail, realign the trail. And if you realign the trail, then that does give you more room to then add more parking, because you'll have more room there. So it does need to kind of all be thought of together. Although they're all different projects, they come together as a whole of something that you don't want to think of as separate projects, if that makes sense.
Another one of my questions is, if the fence line were to be realigned, then would that trail be moved closer to that fence line, which would then open up a few more feet of space on that side, making that area of parking much more accessible to more cars being able to utilize that for parking?
And I do know that y'all heard a presentation from RCDC about the possibility of milk and cookies coming into the area. And I just want to throw it out there that you can go to the meeting of RCDC and you can get a link to the presentation of Lance, who's the owner of Milk and Cookies, that he presented to RCDC, just kind of what his vision was for the area. But how he established his business, Milk and Cookies, is he's a landscape architect, and he actually just created a space of his outdoor business that was like a plant nursery that people really enjoyed coming to, because he loves to just make beautiful spaces. And then he added some food options to it, and then it ended up turning into a place that people love to come, and it turned into a successful restaurant called Tiny Boxwood, which is really good if you haven't been there. And then they, out of Tiny Boxwood, which is over off of 32nd Street area, the second idea about Milk and Cookies came because they actually made the best cookie in the world. If you haven't had one, you need to go to Milk and Cookies or Tiny Boxwood and get one, because it'll change your life. But that second sort of offshoot, which is the Walk Up Milk and Cookies, came out of that. And so if you want to see kind of what beautification can be put into that area around a walk-up restaurant like that, I think it would be great for y'all to visit. But I also think that you might have a resource in Lance as a landscape architect to help you guys, probably as part of his project, to organize and beautify that area, help plant trees for shade, all of those things. So that could also be some part that you consider in this, if the city did choose to move forward with that concept. I don't know that they will, but just throwing that out there as well. And I'm a myself on mute. I'm sorry. I know your meeting is running.
No, well, we need to cover what we need to cover. I've got one concern, which is we keep talking about reconfiguring the fence. And I know, Steve, you're in the midst of repairing and replacing the existing fence as much as possible. So what we're looking at, if we're talking about reconfiguring or moving or straightening or doing any of that, is a large capital expense. And I want to make sure that, one way or the other, we're not doing something that we then will immediately undo, 6 months from now if we decide to go forward. The other thing is, back to Laurie's point, it sounds like a very large capital undertaking, and when we're not able to kind of do a great job of maintaining our current facilities, I have concerns about taking on yet another project when, you know, those are my concerns. But
And Phil, you know that the Little League has $30,000 earmarked for capital projects that because of COVID,
yeah,
you know, didn't get done in the first year, but that realignment of the fencing is one that we did discuss with the Little League, or just changing the fencing to be more in line with the master plan. So I think we have a really good relationship with our Little League leaders, and they love the park and use the park. So I think that they want to see improvements that will help that area function better and help maintain use of the field. So I would just encourage y'all reaching out to Little League and just finding out, you know, what they may be able to do with their funding.
Yeah. Steve, you got any comments on that?
That's kind of part of getting the bids on the fencing and see what it costs and where to go from there. Yeah, I'm not sure.
At this point, if you realign the fence, would your field space still conform to the dimensions that you need?
Well, I mean, you're opening up a big question on whether if we're going to try to meet the future master plan as drawn, if it basically takes out all the fencing on 3, 4, and 5 to make it multi-purpose, and then the outfield fence on field 2 goes away, and it just be a kind of a temporary fence that would be put up during season. And that's how it kind of creates the multi-purpose field. So it would drastically change kind of going forward. But yeah, how it would, I don't know, interim wise, like how you would reconfigure 3, 4, and 5 to keep the off leash area and still meet the master plan.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the scope of this is just huge.
Well, we have all the faith that Vicky and Public Works is going to be able to maintain and keep the park and where it needs to go. Like Carrie said, give us a couple months, we'll see all of that come through. And we still need to be working in concert with what other larger projects are. And we may find that we get to a point and we're at a standstill, but at least we continue to do due diligence and research what we can and find out information that we can to support the master plan to the fullest potential.
I'm not in agreement on that. I would like to see us actually get to a point where we're stable and we know we're taking care of what we've got and we're in a good, you know, we feel confident, and then we have excess time and capacity to go into these things before even spending our time investigating and looking into possibilities. I think we can spend so much time, and in the meantime, there are things brought up to the neighborhood as a whole, which are concerning and upsetting to people or some people and that type of thing. I think once we get to a stable place and we have more than enough time and resources, then we can continue to investigate how we can make things better. But as far as investigating everything while we're still trying to just get to a solid footing, I think is, it's just exhausting. So that's where I'm at.
Do we need to
Make a motion on this?
table this for,
I would table it, but a motion can be made not to. I'm in favor of tabling it till we get more immediate needs addressed for now, but that's just me. And also, I mean, I do think there's going to have to be a lot of investigation and a lot of money. I mean, we're already having problems getting a solid bid from the fencing company that has been selected and getting our current stuff addressed. And so to take on yet another huge scope project, or even to investigate a huge scope project, albeit in alignment with the park master plan proposals, I think is just us chasing our tail. But that's
this is like the connecting trail then. Does this fall into that same? It's
yeah, for me anyway.
Improvement and
even more so. I mean, the connecting trail we've already started to investigate. This is
sure
more or less totally new. I mean, I don't have, as I said before, I don't have a problem with investigating. Can something temporarily be put up to make perpendicular parking or somehow organize the parking of the existing area? But when we're talking about modifying the existing area, moving fence lines, getting rid of the current boulders and placing railroad ties or some other surface, all of that, that's way past the scope of anything that I think we currently could even reasonably investigate, much less take on budgetarily. And I understand $30,000 is earmarked for the current, but that's a one-time earmark. It used to be that Western Hills was putting forth $5,000 a year. They've got a one-time $30,000 amount to work through. And I think we have more than enough issues with our current infrastructure to apply toward that 30,000. I mean, I think right now we're even looking at replacing the fencing that immediately needs to be replaced rather than, replacing all the fencing with the existing poles and that type of stuff. I think 30,000 is really easy to eat through given the size of the park.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, do we want to move on from this? I don't see any actions that we can realistically take at this time. I mean, if the master plan spells it out, then good, but it sounds like we don't really have budget money to move on this. And all these things that connect to the master plan, it's like, do we even want to pursue these without some real hard clarity on, are we going to execute the master plan? Because
I mean, I keep coming back to, and I'm sorry, but I keep coming back to, and I wasn't involved deeply with the master plan, but I did attend some of the meetings, and my read on the master plan and the creation by Nudge and all the work they did was thinking that this could be funded through majority of the funds coming from Austin Parks. And I understand we've got people who are willing and very well-heeled to make donations, and that's a great thing about our neighborhood. I also know we've got people who are willing to make donations to improving the existing facilities, but a lot of those people have concerns that the facilities that they care about particularly are going to change drastically should some of the initiatives in the master plan be implemented. So they're not willing to donate money to something if they know it's then going to be taken, and the thing that they desire to have with the park, and usually those are things with the park more or less staying the way it currently is, are going to go away. These are all concerns that are out there in the wind of the people I talk to, not trying to absolutely kill anything.
Well, let's table this for now, and maybe, I don't know, table it till 2 meetings from now, maybe. I don't know how to.
Well, that may make sense because we're also hearing from Carrie that, let's see Carrie and Vicky and them rock and roll. I mean, I know how we tend to plan, and I think plans are great, but then I also know that Vicky and those guys get yanked off every time a water line gets broken or that type of thing. So schedules tend to keep being pushed back as more immediate emergencies get addressed. And that's just the reality of our neighborhood. But anyway,
Motion would be to table an interim organized parking structure to this area until we have more clarity on how the fence line from Little League could be altered or realigned, and that all consideration moving forward should be in relation to what the master park plan reveals at this point. So we don't want to do an interim organized parking setup for this particular area at this time. Is that correct?
I don't know. I don't know what that interim organized area would be, if that's just, we
That
need
would
to
be
make,
using one of the 3 or 4 recommendations.
no, I know.
That Wendy had said, like railroad ties or these little stakes or little identification marks to have some kind of interim organized.
I would like to know what, sorry, Wendy, I'm not familiar with I'm familiar with railroad ties, but the other things, if we can get pictures of those and that type of thing, and then we can
Yes,
revisit it.
just go to the Park Commission website and then click on the Park Master Plan. And then when you get to the Park Master Plan under supporting documents, there are 3 appendices. And the third one is called Rolling Wood Park Options, and it actually has those options pictured.
Of the temporary parking, because I've studied the Park
exactly.
Master Plan a lot. I don't remember seeing that. Okay, great. I'll try to look at that.
And I think what might help here, Niccole, and this is just a suggestion, is you could make a motion to do what Dawn said, where you table this item time certain to come back in June, so that you have time to reach out to the Little League and to better study and understand the issue, and bring back this item to City Council time certain June or whenever you feel that it would be appropriate. And that way it does make sure that it will get back on the agenda. If you table something indefinitely, it basically means that you don't want to bring it back. That's what you do if you're y'all are done with it and you don't want to take action. If you table it time certain, then that gives you the ability to bring it back at a prescribed time.
Thank you for that clarification. That would be my motion, is let's time certain this agenda item for June, and in the next month, I'll do a little bit more investigating to see what kind of runway we have with it, if anything, and then we can have more time to discuss it.
So the motion is to
Time certain this until the June
bring
meeting.
it up again next week.
Table it, bring it up again in June. Yes.
Okay, I'll second.
Okay, motion by Niccole Maurici to table the parking reconfiguration discussion and revisit it in June. Second by Don Hudson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chad, okay, great. Any opposed? We will revisit this in June. In the meantime, I will look at the park master plan and any other materials that we have. That'd be great. So great. All right, item number 11, discussion and possible action to review private and commercial rate structures and rental fees for the Rollingwood Park facilities and Hatley Fields, and to make a recommendation to City Council.
On the fact that we're running out of time and I'm going to have to leave this meeting soon, can we table this to the next meeting?
Time certain, I think the rest of this agenda, if we could push it to the next meeting, would be very appreciated by myself.
Me as well.
I agree.
The only other thing I see is if we could possibly talk about anything in real, with just laser focus, the water accessibility on the butterfly garden, just because that might allow Vicky or somebody to start moving forward on that. Is that yours, Mary Elizabeth? Is the way to do it quick?
It is, but I almost wish Vicky could be here for this. I don't have any ideas on this. Does anybody else? I don't even know how to
I've spoken to Vicky. Vicky mentioned that she thought the best thing would be to tie into the existing irrigation systems that are on 3, 4, and 5, and just run a line directly over toward the butterfly garden from there. And she thinks that wouldn't be that big of a deal. I have no idea how much that might cost, but I think what we would be doing would be making a recommendation to City Council to at least investigate and get a cost basis for that and that type of thing to do more investigation on it. So we might be able to make a motion and get that voted on. And then I agree, if we can adjourn the other stuff, that'd be great.
That would be great if we could do that, because I think to do that before the heat of the summer would be nice.
Exactly. So do I have a motion, Mary Elizabeth?
So I make a motion that we send a request to City Council to investigate running a line from the fields to the butterfly garden for irrigation purposes.
Okay.
A second.
Second by Niccole Maurici. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Chad, where are you at?
Sure.
Okay. Any opposed? Motion passes. We will make a recommendation to the city council to investigate running a water line over to the butterfly garden. With that, the other items will be tabled. And do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Can I say one thing before we do?
Go for it.
This spreadsheet that's on the agenda of the different, if everybody would just give that a quick look, there's one column of a fee schedule that I compiled from a meeting that Niccole and Phil and I had. And then as I put those out there, then everybody replied. Me, Phil, and Niccole each had our own ideas about how those should be. And I think if we just, they're all kind of similar. But if everybody just give those a look over, we can probably just drive through that quickly next meeting.
That would be great. Hopefully we can put that near the top of the meeting. So
Great.
thank you, Don.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks for your work on that.
Okay, and maybe, so what I would like to suggest is the meeting items that did not get addressed this time go to the top of the next meeting. And we'll just kind of continue working that way. That is another thing. But do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Motion by Mary Elizabeth to adjourn. Do I hear a second? Second by Don Hudson. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All right. Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, great.
Bye-bye.
Bye.